Chapter 44. Purple, Ziqiang felt as if a piece of her heart had been cut off. Qinyu lightly said, "How many merit points do I have?" The youth subconsciously gulped. He felt as if his entire body had gone numb. He muttered, 167,000. Everyone in the hall seemed as if they had been struck by lightning. They stubbornly stared at him, their faces filled with an expression that said, "You brat, was right." The youth scowled. It's true, it's true. It was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. Qinyu had a light expression. Is it enough to reserve the sky thunder bamboo? It is. The youth paled. His eyes were like a rabbit that had seen a big bad wolf, his intestines turning green. Qinyu nodded. Reserve it. Oh. The youth suddenly regained his composure. As he discovered that Qinyu didn't seem to have any intentions of making things difficult for him, his complexion brightened. He nearly ran the entire way. In less than half the time, he presented the certificate with both hands. My lord, please accept it. Once you make up for the rest of your merit points, you can use this to complete the exchange. Ziqiang paled. Her ears buzzed. She didn't think her eyesight would be so good, but this was too good. She no longer hesitated, because they were people from different worlds to begin with. The young girl's innocent, pure, and sweet love ended like this. This was a cruel and realistic world. Qinyu looked at her apologetically. He took the certificate and left. Light flashed at the entrance and Zhu Blue Cloud stepped into the hall. His eyes brightened. I knew it was you, you came back. He swallowed the disrespectful words brat after a moment of hesitation. No matter how much he didn't want to admit it, when he looked at Qinyu he couldn't help but feel a bit of admiration. He had rampaged through the demonic path's territory, cut down 15 golden core demonic cultivators, earned himself the illustrious title of Evil Star and aroused the wrath of the high-level figures of the demonic path. He really wanted to cut open Qinyu's body and see whether or not there was a white-haired old monster hiding beneath his skin. How could he be so capable? Greetings, Elder Zhu. Everyone in the merit hall hurriedly bowed. Zhu Blue Cloud waved his hand. Let's go. I have something to ask you. Qinyu frowned. I'm a bit tired. I want to rest. Hee, that's not up to you. Zhu Blue Cloud sneered twice. He lowered his voice and said, Don't force me to reveal the identity of this evil star, otherwise the demonic cultivators will definitely try to get close to you. Qinyu's frown deepened. Zhu Blue Cloud proudly smiled. Let's go. At this time, several figures walked into the merit hall. The leader was a middle-aged cultivator with a scholarly temperament. He smiled and said, Brother Zhu, long time no see. You look as elegant as ever. Qinyu's eyes widened for a moment before he looked away. Behind the middle-aged cultivator, Zhang was puzzled. That person's expression froze for a moment, but it didn't escape her eyes. Could it be that he knows me? But when he thought about it carefully, he had no impression at all. Zhu Blue Cloud exchanged some pleasantries with him. Then, he glanced behind him and bid his farewells. Qinyu looked straight ahead as he followed. As Zhang looked at his back, a faint sense of familiarity welled up in her heart, and she could not help but frown slightly. At the side, Zhanghua's expression was gloomy. Zhang, that person dared to disrespect you. I'll go teach him a lesson. Before Zhang could speak, everyone in the Hall of Merit looked at him as if they were looking at an idiot. Zhang Qingzu's heart skipped a beat. He turned and scolded, Shut up, don't be so insolent. Moments later, Zhang Jia. After leaving the merit hall, Zhang Qingzu thought for a moment. He asked, Zhang, do you know that person? Zhang Zhang hesitated for a moment and then shook her head. On the battle stage. As they watched Zhu Bluecloud and Qin Yu leave, a 9th-level Foundation establishment cultivator couldn't restrain his curiosity. He loudly said, "Which fellow Daoist has a friend in the merit hall? Can you ask him and dispel the doubts in my heart?" Yes, I also wanted to say that. If it were anyone else, I would only treat it as a joke. But, since it involves Senior Ning Qin, I feel a bit flustered. I feel the same way. A female cultivator stood up. I have a junior apprentice sister working in the merit hall. I will be back soon. After a long time, when everyone thought she had left halfway, the female cultivator's figure finally appeared in their line of sight. Her face was deathly pale, as if she had lost her soul. As if she had been frightened. Zhu Bluecloud lived in an exquisite garden. The scenery was tranquil. He stood by a lake and sneered, "Have you taken a liking to this girl?" Qin Yu didn't even bother to look at him. Zhu Bluecloud wasn't angry. Then she must be an old lover. Don't try to deny it. My eyesight is very good, so don't think you can fool me. Qin Yu lightly said, "If you only want to pry into my privacy, then I will bid my farewells." Stop. Zhu Bluecloud clenched his teeth. Since you're in such a hurry, then let's get down to business. Tell me, how did I become the evil star duo? Do you know that I haven't even dared to take half a step out of Canyon Dwell City recently? There are tens of thousands of demonic cultivators clamoring to kill me. How are you going to settle this debt? I saved you. Zhu Bluecloud stomped his feet. I helped you take the blame. But I saved you. Shut up. What I want right now is an explanation. You did such a good deed, so why should I be dragged down with you? Qin Yu lightly said, I don't understand what you're saying. Then, I saved you. Zhu Bluecloud gasped for breath. But it was unknown what he thought of, but he soon composed himself, a happy expression on his face. Ning Qin, are you trying to hide yourself and play the pig to eat the tiger? Let me tell you, keep dreaming. Don't you find it strange that the great bell outside the merit hall is ringing for some reason? Qin Yu's complexion changed. Zhu Bluecloud laughed. That is the merit hall bell. If you kill a golden core demonic cultivator, the bell will ring once. It rang 15 times just now. 15 golden cores, no wonder the high-level figures of the demonic cultivators were so flustered and exasperated that they issued the order to kill you. As he thought of how he had been implicated, his complexion darkened and he became even happier. Let's see where you can hide now. Come with me and expose yourselves to the rage of the demonic cultivators' hatred. Qin Yu's complexion darkened. If he could, he really wanted to grab hold of the person who arranged the merit hall bell and beat him up. He had wandered through the demonic path territory for several months without being locked onto, but now he was exposed to all the demonic cultivators. Looking at Zhu Bluecloud's smiling face, Qin Yu coldly snorted and walked away. He knew that he couldn't keep his identity a secret anymore. Even if the Alliance issued a gag order, the spies planted by the demonic cultivators would still spread the news. But luckily, it wasn't as if he didn't have a countermeasure. As he turned a corner, Qin Yu stopped and turned around. Do you think I'm the same as you now, so you're happy? Zhu Bluecloud's smile stiffened. What do you mean? Qin Yu said, what I mean is that you are far too naive. He pointed a finger at his face and then turned to leave. Zhu Bluecloud was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He cursed out loud, despicable, how despicable, you bastard. Hearing the curses behind him, Qin Yu smiled. Perhaps there really was some fate between people. For instance, when he met Xing Zhongxiu at East Stream Town. Qin Yu had an extremely good impression of Zhu Bluecloud. This fellow might be a bit sanctimonious on the outside, but he was actually quite interesting. If there was a chance, perhaps they could become friends. But soon, Chinyu regretted his thoughts. If possible, he really wanted to banish Zhu Bluecloud from his life. This was because this fellow actually had a hidden chatterbox attribute. Ning Qin, do you know the West Ridge sex old freak Lu? If you don't, then I'll tell you. That old boy is over 300 years old, and not too long ago he married an 18-year-old female disciple of the Rainbow Sect. I even suspect that his old waist will break in bed. Hee, you have no idea how sanctimonious that old fool is in front of others. Ning Qin, what do you want the Sky Thunder Bamboo for? Don't look at me like that. I am the disciplinary elder of the Alliance, so I have the right to look up information. Don't worry, I won't steal it from you. Moreover, I don't have that many merit points. I'm just reminding you that the Sky Thunder Bamboo isn't easy to raise. It has extremely strict requirements for its living environment. If it dies after you exchange for it, wouldn't that be a tragedy? Ning Qin, the red carps in my family's lake have been tossing and turning recently. I've had someone look at them, but they aren't sick. Can you guess what the reason is? Hee, they're in heat. That's right, these red carps are in heat. This is the first time I've seen a fish in heat. The veterinarian who diagnosed me said that it might be because the atmosphere in Canyon Dwell City is restless, causing the red carps to feel a sense of crisis. Thus, they are in a hurry to lay eggs and give birth. That was enough. Even if you ignored him, Zhu Bluecloud would still stand in front of you and blabber on for several hours without end, often wanting to continue. Ever since he entered the Merit Hall, he had been like this every day. As Chinyu was thinking about whether or not he should quietly move, Zhu Bluecloud finally brought him some useful news. It's getting lively. This fellow was filled with excitement. The latest news is that the demonic path has been attacking Canyon Dwell City for a long time without any results. They have issued a challenge to the Alliance and will decide the ownership of the city in 3 matches. If the demonic path is defeated, they will retreat 300 miles and will not attack for the next half-year. Chinyu's eyes flashed. There are merit points to earn. Zhu Bluecloud gave him a "you're so smart" look. Yes, very, very much so. The 3 matches were divided into early golden cores, middle golden cores, and late golden cores. Every victory would earn 30,000 merit points. This was equal to killing 3 demonic path golden cores. Chinyu smiled. Zhu Bluecloud glanced at him. What, do you want to participate? His expression was as if he were begging him for help and he would satisfy him. Chinyu lightly said, since they had you leak the news to me, they will naturally give me the qualifications to participate. Zhu Bluecloud curled his lips, disappointment written all over his face. You are too smart. Boring, really boring. He was secretly delighted. The Alliance would naturally reward him for helping out in this matter. Hee, Ning Qin, no matter how cunning you are, you still have to drink the water I wash my feet with. Chinyu shook his head. Don't be so tense. If you want to laugh, then laugh. If you convince me to help, then the Alliance will definitely give you benefits. As long as you don't think about the water you wash your feet with, I'm fine with it. Zhu Bluecloud's complexion changed. He blurted out, you can read minds. Chinyu's eyes darkened. Zhu Bluecloud, did you really think of the water I wash my feet with? No, I still have matters to attend to. I'm leaving. Zhu Bluecloud turned and left. As he watched him leave, Chinyu's complexion relaxed. He could finally have some peace and quiet today. Since the Alliance had allowed Zhu Bluecloud to visit him, that meant that this matter had basically been decided and would soon be put into practice. With 30,000 merit points, he would be able to exchange for the Sky Thunder Bamboo. Several days later, Zhu Bluecloud came to visit. He brought news confirmed by the righteous and demonic paths. The two sides would fight in Hidden Wind Valley 30 miles outside the city. They would use the method of winning 2 out of 3 battles. This was no different from what Qin Yu had expected. Chapter 45. Zhu Bluecloud said, Qin Yu, you should be aware that this battle between the righteous and demonic paths will not only involve Canyon Dwell City, but also the morale of both sides. This will affect the entire Southern Empire battlefield. According to what I know, the high-level figures of the demonic path have already sent powerhouses from their main headquarters. Each one of them is an astonishing individual of their generation. This battle is not as simple as it seems on the surface. He paused for a moment. Although you are strong, you don't necessarily have full confidence you can win. With your methods, you can obtain 30,000 merit points with some time. There is no need for you to take such a great risk. If you aren't willing to help, I can explain things to the Alliance. It is impossible for them to force you. Qin Yu's heart warmed. He smiled. To make you so anxious that you're even hinting at something so obvious, just who did the demonic path send? Zhu Bluecloud never doubted his intelligence. He sighed. If you don't withdraw, then the one you will be fighting is the #1 genius of the demonic path's younger generation, Army Breaker. He broke into Golden Core at 27 years of age. Although he is only at the first level of Golden Core, he was able to kill a Golden Core powerhouse when he was at the Foundation Establishment realm. His current terrifying strength can only be described as unfathomably deep. Qin Yu's heart chilled. In the world of cultivators, ranks were extremely strict. When a high-level cultivator spoke to a low-level cultivator, they could control their life and death. There were very few people that could jump ranks to fight, and those that could jump ranks to fight were even rarer. But those that could do so were all chosen prides of heaven. They had formidable talent, or they had amazing methods of good fortune. No matter which one it was, they were extremely difficult to deal with. However, he remained calm on the surface. Although there were great waves in his heart, they were far from becoming waves. If it was a Foundation Establishment cultivator killing a Golden Core, he could still kill them, and he would kill far more than just one. Seeing his expression, Zhu Bluecloud revealed a worried expression. He shook his head. I knew that you wouldn't withdraw. If you were able to step into the demonic domain alone and slaughter everyone in your path, how could you possibly fear a little demon? He turned. Let's go. Follow me to the Alliance. There is some confidential information regarding Army Breaker that might be useful to you. Qin Yu nodded. All right. Confidence wasn't arrogance. Army Breaker was absolutely strong. If he knew information ahead of time, he would be able to calmly deal with him. Alliance Base. The one responsible for receiving Ning Qin was a 7th-level Golden Core cultivator named Jiang Yuanhao. Looking at his performance, his status was above that of Zhu Bluecloud's. His attitude towards Ning Qin was extremely good, and his smile didn't diminish at all. After Ning Qin mentioned that he wanted to look up news of Army Breaker, he immediately handed over a jade slip and sat to the side, his demeanor admirable. Qin Yu thanked him and received the jade slip. He looked over the information within, and after a long time he looked up and closed his eyes. Countless pieces of information converged in his mind, piecing together the figure of Army Breaker and summarizing his basic state. His magic power was thick, his mortal body was formidable, he had a demonic treasure in his hands, and it seemed his divine sense was also sharp. Qin Yu subconsciously frowned. He felt that this person's performance was a bit familiar, but he was immediately stunned to discover that this was a replica of him. How many coincidences, cautiousness, good fortune, and dangers had led to the cultivation he had today. Army Breaker had this strength, and had even broken through to Jindan a step earlier. His experiences might not be any weaker than Qin Yu's, making him more difficult to deal with than Qin Yu had expected. It was just 30,000 merit points. Was it really too risky? Just as this thought appeared, Qin Yu suppressed it. Cultivating the great Tao and changing one's fate was the true meaning of cultivation. If he retreated today, it would shake his will and leave behind hidden dangers in his mind. Qin Yu opened his eyes. His expression was solemn. He met their gazes and slowly said, "Starting from today, I will go into seclusion until the day of the competition." Jiang Yuanhao relaxed a little. His smile widened. Of course, fellow Daoist Ning Qin can cultivate in the Alliance Station. No one will disturb you. Qin Yu stood up. There is one more thing. I will not be using the name of the Kong family's exalted Ning Qin to fight. No problem. Jiang Yuanhao readily agreed. I will lead fellow Daoist to your seclusion area. Zhu Blue Cloud followed behind, his eyes sweeping over Qin Yu. Qin Yu didn't say anything. He nodded, his expression calm and unperturbed. So what if he was army breaker? Who was weak and who was strong would only be known after they fought. The Alliance training field was heavily guarded and there was a great array formation set up to gather spiritual strength. As long as one paid a small fee, they could obtain an absolutely safe cultivation chamber. This was a place that was widely praised. Jiang Yuanhao brought Zhu Blue Cloud to accompany him, so Qin Yu naturally received a high standard of reception. The person in charge of the training field personally arranged for the best cultivation chamber to be opened. Coincidentally, the Zhang family was also at the training field, as if they were waiting for someone to leave seclusion. Jiang Yuanhao's arrival caused a great commotion and drew everyone's attention. But Zhang Zhang's eyes were mostly focused on Qin Yu. She couldn't figure out just who this extremely ordinary youth was that such a great figure of the Alliance would personally accompany him. At this time, Zhang Qingzu walked out from the training field with a bright smile on his face. After several days of seclusion, he had reached the 3rd level of Golden Core. He was naturally satisfied. His eyes fell on Zhang Zhang and the others. Just as he was about to raise a hand to greet them, he paused and turned to look at Jiang Yuanhao. After a moment of hesitation, he walked over and cupped his hands together. Fellow Daoist Jiang, fellow Daoist Su, fellow Daoist Zhu, how do you do? His smile was warm and friendly. But besides Zhu Blue Cloud who turned to greet him, the other two only nodded and continued to talk. Zhang Qingzu's smile became forced. He felt a cold intent wash over him. He didn't know if he should leave or stay, he was left in an awkward position. Zhang Zhang saw her father receive such a cold reception from afar. Her heart ached and her eyes turned red. She bit her lips to prevent tears from falling down. Qin Yu noticed this. He hesitated for a moment and cupped his hands together. Greetings, fellow Daoist Zhang. Jiang Yuanhao was startled. He glanced at Qin Yu, his expression calm and unfathomable. His thoughts raced and he smiled. Fellow Daoist Zhang, we met several days ago. Zhang Qingzu was excited. He quickly said, yes, when I came to Canyon Dwell City, I met fellow Daoist Jiang once. His eyes fell on Qin Yu, filled with gratitude and confusion. The cultivator in charge of the training field, surnamed Sun, also smiled and exchanged some pleasantries with him. This caused Zhang Qingzu's face to flush red with excitement and he promised to get closer to him in the future. Although Zhang Qingzu wanted to stay a bit longer, he suppressed these thoughts. He cupped his hands together and bowed before leaving. The Zhang family cultivators all had excited expressions. They all bowed, their eyes filled with worship as they looked at their patriarch. Jiang Yuanhao and Sun Siyuan were absolute high-level figures in the alliance. For them to be able to chat and laugh with their patriarch, just what sort of treatment was this? If this was said out loud, it would be a great honor. Zhang Zhang's face lit up with joy. Her words had a double meaning. Congratulations, Daddy. Zhang Qingzu smiled. He subconsciously looked behind him. The training room was prepared and everyone cupped their hands together in farewell. Zhu Blue Cloud escorted Qin Yu in. Seeing this, his heart skipped a beat. But he didn't say anything and led his people away from the training field. After returning to their residence, they waved their attendants away. When there was only father and daughter left, Zhang Zhang couldn't help but ask, Daddy, Senior Jiang and Senior Sun are so friendly. If news of this spreads, it will be greatly beneficial to you, so why are you so depressed? Zhang Qingzu bitterly smiled. Daughter, do you really think that Jiang Yuanhao and Sun Siyuan only have me in their eyes? The reason they are acting like this today is all because of my face. He spoke of how Qin Yu had helped them out of their predicament. Zhang Zhang gasped, shock covering her face. He should only have a foundation establishment cultivation and shouldn't be much stronger than I am, so how could he have such great face? Zhang Qingzu's eyes brightened. Wait. Foundation establishment cultivation, I should have known it was him. Yes, it must be him. Who is Daddy talking about? Kong family's exalted, Ning Qin. Zhang Zhang cried out. It's him. Although she hadn't been in Canyondwell City for long, she had heard this name far too many times. I should have known that besides him, who else would have the face to change the attitude of characters like Jiang Yuanhao and Sun Siyuan? Zhang Qingzu muttered to himself. Whispers. Zhang Zhang hesitated. Daddy, although Lord Ning Qin is strong, he might not be able to influence Senior Jiang and Senior Sun, right? Zhang Qingzu forced a smile. Of course he can. Zhang Zhang, do you still remember when the merit service bell rang 15 times in a row? Zhang Zhang's eyes widened. That's him. The Alliance issued a gag order for this matter. I only inadvertently learned of it. Zhang Qingzu secretly shook his head. As he thought about how he hadn't been able to get closer to Ning Qin when they first met outside the merit service hall, he couldn't help but feel regret. But why would Ning Qin help him? Zhang Qingzu's eyes fell on his beloved daughter. He suddenly said, Zhang Zhang, you really don't know Ning Qin. Zhang Zhang shook her head. Your daughter doesn't know him. Could it be that Ning Qin was interested in Zhang Zhang? Zhang Qingzu's heart raced. This explanation was reasonable, but if it was true, he hesitated for a moment, not saying anything. He thought that if this was true, Ning Qin would surely make a follow-up move. It wouldn't be too late to mention it after confirming it. 6 days later, the righteous and demonic paths met at Hidden Wind Valley. It was unknown what he was thinking, or perhaps it was because he learned something from Zhu Blue Cloud, but Jiang Yuanhao sent out an invitation to Zhang Qingzu. Zhang Qingzu excitedly brought Zhang Zhang and several other outstanding disciples with him. They were surprised by Jiang Yuanhao's invitation and Sun Siyuan's smile as he greeted them. The Alliance cultivators whispered inwardly. They weren't indifferent to Zhang Qingzu, but they were excited to finally step into their circle after so many trials and tribulations. Compared to the shrewdness of their elders, the young and frivolous second-generation disciples were simple and crude. They simply didn't place the Zhang family in their eyes. Zhang Zhang could feel the burning heat in the eyes of several enthusiastic disciples. She was annoyed and embarrassed, so she drew a clear line between herself and the second-generation disciples and enjoyed the scenery around the camp by herself. Hidden Wind Valley was extremely deep and the terrain was twisted. There were countless cracks in the ground that wove together like a spider web. Even if a strong wind blew in, it would be difficult to get out. This was why it was called Hidden Wind Valley. The exposed red mountain rocks had been exposed to the sun and wind for countless years and had cracked apart, giving off a rather wild and desolate feeling. As Zhang immersed herself in this, her depression began to disperse. Zhang Hua and the others were overjoyed. They tried to cheer her up and accompany her through the valley. Zhang, look. These dozens of cracks crisscrossing each other. From afar, doesn't it look like a giant bear foraging for food? Zhang Hua smiled and pointed a finger. But in the next moment, his face froze. Several cultivators suddenly drilled out from the cracks across from them. As soon as they saw each other, they could feel that their auras were cold and gloomy. Demonic path cultivators. Zhang said in a low voice, "Big brother Zhanghua, let's go." Zhanghua regained his composure and hurriedly nodded. But at this time, the demonic cultivators across from them had already discovered them. After a brief pause, one of them flickered and blocked their path. Golden Core. Zhanghua's heart shrank. "Senior, what is the meaning of this?" The Golden Core demonic cultivator's eyes were cold and gloomy. "I want to ask you, just what are you trying to do by breaking into the territory controlled by my demonic path?" Zhang quickly turned around. The maid beside her said in a panic, "Miss, we haven't crossed the boundary." "Girl, are you saying that I am speaking nonsense?" A thick killing intent surged forth, causing Qiuqiu's face to pale. Zhanghua clenched his teeth. "Senior's actions are beneath your dignity." The Golden Core demonic cultivator coldly sneered. "Shut up. You don't have the qualifications to speak in front of me. Hurry up and give me an explanation, otherwise none of you can leave." Zhang stopped Zhanghua from speaking any further. She bowed and said, "Junior greets senior." Today, juniors were greedy for the scenery and accidentally entered the territory controlled by the demonic path. "I ask senior to be magnanimous and spare us this time." Chapter 46. The Golden Core demonic cultivator's complexion relaxed a little. "Little girl, you know the rules and etiquette, I like it. But, if you make a mistake you must be punished. Come, follow me back for questioning. Once you explain yourself, I will let you go." Zhang's face stiffened. She certainly couldn't agree to this. Otherwise, if she really entered the territory of the demonic path, she wouldn't be able to explain herself even if she had 100 mouths. Moreover, there was something in the old devil's eyes that terrified and disgusted her. She took a deep breath and said softly, "Senior, with my status, I can't cause any trouble at all. Let us go and pretend that nothing happened. Isn't that good?" Li Yunma revealed a hesitant look. "All right, I will let them go, but you must stay." He didn't want to lose this piece of meat at the edge of his mouth. Zhanghua was enraged, "Old demon. My master is one of the upper echelons of the alliance. If you dare to harm the young miss, you won't be able to escape." Bang! Li Yunma flicked his sleeves and sent him flying away. Li Yunma's eyes were fierce. "I want to know just how your teacher wants me to face tribulation." "Stop." Liang Taizu led his people forwards. "Draw back. Do not be rude to this young miss." Li Yunma respectfully nodded. Liang Taizu swept his eyes around and sighed inwardly. Because of Li Yunma's cultivation method, he normally didn't lack women, so he wasn't surprised. But Zhang's beauty was beyond his expectations. He cupped his hands across his chest and said, "This subordinate is rude and has startled the miss." Zhang was shocked. Among the demonic cultivators, there was an old man with an aura as deep and unfathomable as the abyss. He was the strongest among them. Who was this young man? How could there be such extravagance? Senior did not make things difficult for me. Young master, you are being too serious. Liang Taizu's eyes lit up with praise. misunderstands the bigger picture, so I will not make things difficult for you any longer. But this subordinate of mine has already drawn the bottom line that he will leave one person behind. Miss, I ask that you abandon one of the two maids and you may safely leave. Behind Zhang Zhang, the expressions of the two women changed drastically. In her panic, Chiu Chiu glanced to the side. Seeing her pale face, she calmed down a little. She thought to herself, I've been with Miss since childhood. Even if she has no other choice, she won't abandon me. The others obviously had the same thought. Their eyes looked at her faintly discernible. Some of them felt that it was a pity, but they didn't say anything. Otherwise, would they stay on her behalf? What a joke. Gu Ling bit her lips, a pleading look on her face. Zhang Zhang forced a smile. Gongzi, Liang Taizu faintly said, Miss, don't force me to take back my promise. Gu Ling was filled with despair. She couldn't hold back her tears any longer and they fell down her cheeks. Li Yunma licked his lips. He lifted a finger and said, Young master, this old servant thinks this girl isn't bad at all. Only a pear blossom in the rain can taste good. Zhang Zhang's body stiffened slightly. Everything seemed to have been decided. In the silence, a black figure stepped out from a bend in the valley. The youth's appearance was extremely ordinary, but his eyes were unfathomable like the sea. How lively! The cold voice was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. Zhang Zhang suddenly turned her head. Although it was an unfamiliar face that entered her eyes, the way he walked, the way he carried himself. There's no mistaking it, it's him, it's definitely him. Joy surged from the bottom of her heart as she hurriedly bowed. Greetings. Milord. The people from the Zhang clan and the demonic cultivators all revealed strange expressions. Could it be that a mere foundation establishment cultivator could change the situation? Li Yunma's complexion changed. His cold and gloomy eyes fell on the black-robed youth. He turned and whispered several words into Liang Taizu's ear. Liang Taizu's eyes brightened. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. After a moment, he opened his eyes and smiled. What a familiar smell. We meet again. He swept his eyes around. Where is the Grandmaster? I have never forgotten the graciousness of teaching you that day. The black-robed youth was expressionless. I have no idea what you are talking about. Liang Taizu smiled. It doesn't matter if you don't know. We have plenty of time. How about we come to my tent and sit down so we can have a good chat? The black-robed youth lightly said, Liang Taizu, the righteous and demonic meetings. The demonic meetings are the manifestation of the will of the high-level figures. Even if you have an honored status, if you try to ruin the demonic meetings you will inevitably pay a heavy price. It wasn't easy for you to obtain your current status, so you should consider it carefully. Liang Taizu's smile widened. You seem to know a lot, but as long as I keep all of you here, who will know that I was the one who did this? The black-robed youth looked at the old man across from him. You can try. The old man slowly looked up. His aura instantly became sharp and sharp, as if it could pierce through the world. Liang Taizu stared at Qin Yu's subtle changes. He lifted a hand, Uncle C. The old man lowered his head, becoming unremarkable once more. He smiled. As the Grand Master's disciple, I must give you some face. Since you interfered in today's matters, this is the result. But, I truly hate you more and more. So, it is best if you don't run into me in the future, otherwise I will definitely kill you. The demonic path group turned and left. Whoosh, with the sound of breaking air, a beam of light shot forwards. As it landed, Zhang Qingzu's figure appeared. He anxiously asked, Zhang Zhang, are you all right? Zhang Zhang's eyes turned red. She suppressed her grievances and said, it was all thanks to Senior Ning Qin's help that the demonic path cultivators were frightened away. Zhang Qingzu hesitated. Fellow Taoist Ning Qin. Qin Yu was a bit helpless. Why did he always run into people with extremely strong discernment abilities? He nodded and said, I ask that you keep my identity a secret. I still have some matters to attend to, so farewell. He glanced at Gu Ling, and then turned to leave. Zhang wanted to say something but hesitated. She looked at his back, a bit confused. Although his appearance was ordinary, his character and cultivation were all above average. He had calmly frightened away the demonic path powerhouses, making him seem even more dignified. For such a Ning Qin to appear when a young girl was dreaming of love, his killing intent was astonishing. Zhang Qingzu saw all of this and a smile bloomed on his face. In his opinion, Ning Qin's actions today were more than enough to prove what he was thinking, and the key point was that Zhang didn't reject him. If she could form a marriage with him, then it would be a great fortune for the Zhang family and for his daughter. For some unknown reason, Zhang Qingzu suddenly thought of the boy who had a verbal engagement with Zhang. He smiled inwardly. His daughter was now a true disciple of the Rainbow Sect. She had reached foundation establishment in just 3 years of cultivation and her talent was first class, like a fairy. Now that she had finally met her match, just what sort of virtue or ability did this country bumpkin have to dream of forming a marriage with Zhang? Zhang Hua had already told him what had happened. He originally thought it was too callous, but now he felt it was the right way. Zhang Qingzu's daughter wasn't someone that just anyone had the qualifications to think about. Li Yunma had a look of unwillingness. Young master, although that boy has changed his appearance, there is no mistaking the aura on his body. The storage bag is in his hands, so why don't you capture him today? Liang Taizu placed a hand on his forehead. He lightly said, do you think that with his foundation establishment cultivation, he dares to be so insolent in front of me? Especially since Uncle C is here. Li Yunma was shocked. Are you saying that the Grand Master has already reached nascent soul? Liang Taizu nodded. Even if there is only a 30% chance of that happening, I cannot take such a risk. Otherwise, the rage of a nascent soul will be enough to burn us to ashes. But... Li Yunma hesitated. Liang Taizu smiled. The storage bag is in his hand so the demon body materials won't be able to escape. During the righteous and demonic convocation, there will be plenty of chances to kill him. However, in this matter, we need to stand on the side of the victim. If he tries to kill me on his own initiative and is killed instead, then even if his teacher has reached nascent soul, he still won't be able to do anything to me. Otherwise, even if he is at the nascent soul realm, he will still have to face the relentless pursuit of my demonic path. Li Yunma glanced at Deep Sea Demon and wholeheartedly said, young master is wise. So it turned out that Deep Sea Demon had already pledged his loyalty to his young master. Indeed, his young master was a demon amongst demons. His bloodline, potential, temperament, and methods were all excellent. He had a high chance of becoming a Saint Lord of the demonic path. Such a person was naturally worth following. This subordinate will immediately investigate his whereabouts. Li Yunma hurriedly left. Liang Taizu suddenly said, Uncle C. Deep Sea Demon's tone was calm. Within 100 miles, there is no nascent soul. Liang Taizu smiled. Very good. Everything will proceed according to the original plan. After this matter is over, there will be no one in the younger generation of the demonic path that can compare with me. The alliance meeting arrived as scheduled. On both sides of the steep valley, large stands had been carved out. The cultivators of the righteous and demonic paths sat across from each other. Although they restrained each other, their invisible auras still shot into the highest heavens, stirring up the winds and clouds. Behind them, the righteous and demonic armies were awe-inspiring. All of their eyes were focused on Hidden Wind Valley. The battle had begun. The first match. Liang Taizu's position wasn't too eye-catching. He turned and said, "Go." The dark-skinned cultivator in the back stood up and respectfully bowed. "My wife and children will be in the hands of young master." Liang Taizu said, "The demonic path will not forget your contribution." The dark-skinned cultivator shot into the skies. In the blink of an eye, he landed on the battle stage and roared, "Demonic Path's Mountain Shake Demon, 7th level Golden Core Cultivation, who would like to fight?" A low and deep voice with a metallic tone swept through the entire audience. In the Alliance viewing platform, several great figures frowned and turned to look. Jiang Yuanhao explained, "The Alliance decides where the meeting will take place. The order of battle will be decided by the demonic path." He turned and earnestly said, "Brother Ku, the demonic path has come with ill intentions. You must be careful." Kuo lowered his head, revealing 9 scars on his forehead. He gathered his palms together and said, "For the trillions of lives in the Southern Empire, this poor monk will do his best." The high-level Alliance figures cupped their hands together. There were no Buddhist sects in the Southern Empire, and Kuo was an ascetic monk who preached to the outside world. His Buddhist cultivation was unfathomably deep, and his noble character and unquestionable integrity were worthy of praise. Kuo calmly stepped forwards without the least bit of magic power fluctuations. He landed on the stage and solemnly uttered Buddhist chants. "The demonic path has invaded and created endless slaughter, so there will surely be karmic retribution. You must know that the sea of bitterness knows no bounds. Repent and you will be saved." Mountain Shake Demon laughed. "My demonic path slaughters the heavens and earth, born from the killing tribulation of the world. If you want me to lay down my butcher's knife, then kill me." Bang! A demonic energy shot into the skies, billowing like thick smoke. A cold and gloomy aura swept out in all directions. With a loud bang, the red stones at the bottom of the valley disintegrated. Cracks spread outwards and Mountain Shake Demon rushed forwards like a raging bull. Wherever he passed, the ground couldn't withstand the terrifying pressure. It shattered and splashed apart, as if it were being drawn by an invisible brush. Kuo raised his hands and slapped them forwards. Buddhist light appeared and the phantoms of thousands of Buddhas appeared, all of them glaring at him as if they were subduing a demon. Mountain Shake Demon crashed into them, as if he were crashing into a group of mountains. There was a heaven-shaking explosion and the phantoms of Buddhas collapsed, unable to resist at all. He was like a hot knife through butter. The killing intent around him was astonishing, as if he were an ancient demon that could crush all things. On the Alliance viewing platform, the second-generation juniors cried out in alarm. Their eyes were filled with shock and fear. They didn't expect Mountain Shake Demon to be so fierce. Jiang Yuanhao and the others had calm expressions. Not only did they not panic, but they even revealed joy deep in their eyes. On the surface it seemed as if Mountain Shake Demon had the upper hand, but the damaged Buddhas didn't dissipate. Rather, they rapidly reformed and reappeared. Mountain Shake Demon rushed forwards and was also suppressed by the Buddhas. The Buddhist cultivation methods were originally amazing in their endurance to begin with. With the rough and tyrannical Mountain Shake Demon fighting, the demons were naturally lacking. If there weren't any accidents, they would win this battle. Jiang Yuanhao and the others smiled. In the next moment, they stood up, their smiles frozen on their faces. "Ha ha ha ha." Mountain Shake Demon wildly laughed. "Bald donkey, since you want to enlighten me, then follow me to the Yellow Springs." His body grew nearly a foot taller. Blood vessels bulged beneath his skin and a chaotic aura erupted from his body. Bang! With a heaven-shaking explosion, the earth collapsed and dust rose into the skies for miles around. Cracks appeared on the cliffs on both sides and countless stones fell down. Rumble rumble, it was like rolling thunder. On the Alliance viewing platform, the high-level figures all paled. Chapter 47. Mountainquake Demon had self-detonated. Using the golden core as a catalyst, he ignited all the magic power in his body and self-destructed, producing an extremely terrifying power that destroyed everything within its range. Qin Yu's pupils shrank and his complexion darkened. He had experienced the self-detonation of a golden core demonic cultivator before, so he was well aware of just how deadly it was. However, on that day, the one who dragged him down with him was only at the early gold core stage, while mountain-shaking demon's cultivation was at the late gold core stage. Kuo's strength was above mountain shaker demons, and he had an advantage in the Buddhist sect's cultivation technique. However, in front of the ruthlessness of perishing together, all of this seemed extremely weak. Whoosh! Jiang Yuanhao rushed into the battlefield and waved his sleeves. A strong gust of wind suddenly rose, dispersing the dust in the air and revealing the horrifying scene inside. The ground had been torn into pieces, and there was a crater that was hundreds of feet deep. Everything within a radius of a few miles had been cut down by a foot or so. It was extremely flat, but it was also broken by cracks like a broken mirror. Kuo fell to the ground. His tattered monk robe was soaked in blood. His face was covered in countless wounds, and even his bones could be seen. On the Alliance viewing platform, rage appeared on everyone's faces. The only fortunate thing was that his chest rose up and down, proving that he was still alive. Jiang Yuanhao roared, "Despicable." On the demonic path viewing platform, a demonic cultivator powerhouse stood up. In a battle of life and death, it is up to the will of the heavens. You can use any method at your disposal to kill your opponent. Dying together with your enemy is a heroic deed, so how is this despicable? According to our agreement, this battle is a draw. Under the support of the boundless magic power, his cold voice spread throughout the hidden wind valley. In the Alliance's viewing platform, a 6th-level golden core cultivator's face instantly paled and he began to sweat profusely. He was the second person to fight in the righteous and demonic wars. Everyone. He hesitated, but his meaning was clear. The high-level figures of the Alliance fell silent, unable to utter even half a word of comfort. Since the demonic path had used such cruel methods, the result could be imagined once they stepped onto the stage. Jiang Yuanhao brought Kuo back and handed him over to the Alliance's doctors for treatment. When he came back covered in blood, he immediately flew into a rage. Even though Master Kuo has nothing to do with the Southern Empire, he still gracefully took the stage. As an outstanding talent of the Southern Empire, you actually have thoughts of withdrawing. The man's face was full of shame. He lowered his head and did not say a word. Brother Jiang, please calm your anger. The demonic path's methods are cruel and cruel. It is understandable that fellow Daoist Lin is panicking and wants to retreat. Indeed. You and I never imagined that the demonic path would be so cruel. In this battle, we have fallen into their trap. Let's think about what we should do next. We can't just admit defeat when no one is fighting. If that was the case, the Alliance's morale would definitely collapse. Jiang Yuanhao's anger subsided. He was the person in charge of the righteous and demonic conclave, so when all was said and done, he was also responsible for this matter. His complexion became even uglier. After an emergency discussion, the higher-ups of the Alliance came up with a plan, but this was too unreasonable. Even if everyone felt that it was the only way, no one dared to say it. Finally, it fell onto Zhu Blue Cloud. After obtaining the jade slip from the Alliance high-level figures, Zhu Blue Cloud's complexion was extremely gloomy. He angrily tried to argue with them, but in the end he braced himself and walked over. Ning Qin. Sigh, I really don't have the face to say it. See for yourself. If you don't want to, just directly refuse. If something happens, I'll support you. Qin Yu received the jade slip. After several breaths of time, he handed it back. I understand. Blue veins popped up on Zhu Blucloud's forehead. What do you mean? You agreed. If the demonic path is even willing to self-destruct, it can be seen that they are determined to win. If you step onto the stage, you will most likely die. Qin Yu's heart warmed. He wasn't too happy with the actions of the Alliance high-level figures, but this battle not only involved the victory and defeat of the righteous and demonic factions, but it was also a tempering of his own body. Today, his spirit and will had reached the peak. He could not take even half a step back, otherwise a flaw would appear in his mind. Don't worry, I will win. Zhu Blucloud's heart shook. He didn't know any of this and only thought that Qin Yu was the same as Grandmaster Kuo. He didn't want the Southern Empire's lives to suffer the torment of the demonic path. He felt ashamed and respect welled up in his heart. He cupped his hands across his chest and said, Brother Ning, once you return victorious, we will drink until we are drunk. He turned and walked away. The jade slip was soon delivered to the demonic path viewing platform. Liang Taizu retrieved his divine sense and smiled. Li Yunma respectfully said, Young Master's plans are truly marvelous. Gratification flashed in Deep Sea Demon's eyes. He felt more and more that his decision was correct. Liang Taizu really had a great chance of becoming the future Saint Monarch of the demonic path. Liang Taizu realized this and was extremely satisfied. Deep Sea Demon was the strongest powerhouse under his command. To be able to make him truly loyal to him was a great harvest. And more importantly, the righteous and demonic convocation was the first major event he had taken over. If he did well, he could stabilize his position and increase his influence within the demonic path, laying down a solid foundation for his future plans. Up until now, everything had been under his control. He had abandoned Mountain Shake Demon and crippled the Righteous Path Alliance's powerhouse Kuo. He could also use this to lock in the final victory. This was absolutely worth it. Of course, all of this was built upon the outcome of the third match. But, with Army Breaker personally taking action, was there anyone in the Righteous Path Alliance that could be his match? Liang Taizu waved his hand. Agree to their request. The second match is considered a draw. Let the third match begin. He stood up. Brother Army Breaker, I'll have to trouble you. Army Breaker opened his eyes, a swift and fierce infernal energy flashing within them. Although he wasn't tall, he was like a mountain that blocked out the heavens, causing one's heart to fill with dread. After this matter, I no longer owe you any favors. Liang Taizu smiled. Of course, in the future struggle for the Demon Monarch, I look forward to meeting Brother Army Breaker. Humph. Army Breaker coughed and rushed forwards. He was like a giant boulder falling into a valley. With a heaven-shaking explosion, massive waves rose up from the ground, sweeping out in all directions. He lifted a finger and said, Who wants to die? Billowing waves echoed in the air. With such power and momentum, the demonic path viewing platform was filled with cheers. Li Yunma's complexion was ugly. Young Master, this person is a formidable opponent. Liang Taizu's smile didn't diminish. He only has the strength of a fool. There is nothing to worry about. To be able to urge Army Breaker to attack was the basis of his confidence in today's situation. Suddenly, his smile stiffened. He slowly straightened his body and narrowed his eyes. Li Yunma shouted out, Young Master, it's him. Liang Taizu's eyes were cloudy and uncertain. What should have been in the bag was now shrouded in a shadow. Young Master, rest assured. In the Southern Empire, whether it is the righteous path or the demonic path, there is no one at the early Golden Core realm that can compare with Army Breaker. Deep Sea Demon lightly said. Li Yunma diabolically grinned. This brat is seeking death. Let's take advantage of this chance to borrow Army Breaker's hand to deal with him. Liang Taizu composed himself. He nodded. Let's see. It had only been 3 years since the incident at East Stream Town, but this little Foundation establishment boy had already become a Golden Core. Moreover, Mountain Shake Demon had blown himself up and still dared to step onto the stage. He definitely had something he could rely on. As his thoughts raced, Liang Taizu's heart wasn't as calm as it seemed on the surface. Qin Yu flew out from the viewing platform. The high-level figures of the Alliance knew who he was, and their eyes filled with shame and anticipation. If Liang Taizu wanted to lock in the victory of the third match, then so did they. The second-generation juniors were in an uproar. They began to whisper amongst themselves, "Who is this fellow? How come I've never seen him before? He is simply seeking death," and so on and so forth. At the edge, Zhang Zhang's mind was in a mess. She never imagined that he would be the one to step onto the stage for the third match. Now that things had come to this, she could only pray in her heart that Lord Ning Qin could return safely. Zhang Qingzu's complexion paled. A great karmic opportunity was about to fall upon his daughter. Not only would she have someone to rely on, but the Zhang family would also benefit from it. But Ning Qin was actually going to step onto the stage to fight. His opponent was Army Breaker, the demonic path's Army Breaker. Zhang Qingzu glanced at Zhang Zhang and sighed inwardly. Although Ning Qin was strong, he wasn't optimistic about the result of this match. The only thing he could rejoice about was that he hadn't exposed his relationship with his daughter, nor had there been any substantial progress. Shwa, the light scattered and Qin Yu landed on the ground. Army Breaker's figure burst out, boundless demonic energy revolving around him. A blood-red demonic seal condensed above his head. The ghost skull above howled, its terrifying aura suppressing outwards. Words suddenly erupting to kill. Qin Yu remained expressionless. He lifted a hand, and with a shrill sound that tore through the air, nearly tearing apart one's eardrums. A 10-foot-long cold light appeared, slashing down on the ghost skull seal like a saber. There was a loud ringing of metal as the ghost skull was sent flying away. Army Breaker's pupils shrank. He thought to himself that this was indeed a powerful enemy. The Righteous Path Alliance had already locked in victory for the third match. He had already expected that his opponent would be strong, so he wasn't surprised. His mind stirred for a moment before he composed himself. No matter who his opponent was, since they had run into him, the result would be the same. As he approached, Army Breaker roared and punched out his fist. At the same time, a black light flew out, circling behind Qin Yu and fiercely piercing towards him. Bang! 2 fists collided. Army Breaker stuffily coughed and drew back, each step causing the earth to crack open. Qin Yu also drew back. A numb feeling spread from his arm to his entire body. At this time, his complexion paled and his body trembled. The black light behind him was about to stab into his back. Whoosh! The black light met it. With a light ring, the 2 black lights flew back. Qin Yu lifted his hand, a black nail lingering on his fingertips. Army Breaker's face darkened. Corpse sealing nail. The demonic treasure that was forced back hung in front of him. It was shaped like a fang, its slaughter intent astonishing. However, there was a bit of damage at the tip. This was caused by the collision with the corpse sealing nail. On the demonic path viewing platform, several Golden Core demons stood up, their faces filled with shock. Liang Taizu sighed. Seniors, rest assured. I already know this person's identity and he has nothing to do with my demonic path. Killing him will not provoke any trouble. The several old demons' complexions relaxed a little. But as they thought about how the Righteous Path Alliance cultivators could control the corpse sealing nail, their complexions still darkened. Liang Taizu stood up and walked to the front of the platform. Brother Army Breaker, there is no need to worry. If you can kill this person, I guarantee that the corpse sealing nail will belong to you in the future. Apprentice Nephew Liang. An old demon angrily said. Liang Taizu didn't turn around. Today's meeting will be presided over by me. I hope that seniors can support my decision. Deep Sea Demon straightened himself, a terrifying aura breaking out from his body. The eyes of the old devils flickered, but they remained silent. Liang Taizu remained expressionless, but beneath his sleeves, he had already clenched his fists. By promising the corpse sealing nail, he had already offended the powerhouses of the demonic path today. This was in no way in line with his plans. But at this time, he couldn't worry too much about this. Qin Yu's display of strength had left him shocked. If he didn't provoke Army Breaker to fight with everything he had, then his plan might fail. At that time, many of his arrangements would seem laughable and foolish. Not only would it be difficult for him to maintain his position today, but it would also cause great damage to his future plans. He had experienced danger, stood out from the rest of the sect, and obtained the status he had today. Such an outcome was obviously unacceptable to him. Army Breaker's eyes brightened. Liang Taizu's conditions had thoroughly tempted him. Those who wielded the corpse sealing nails were exalted by the demonic path. Their status was even above that of a sect master. If he could obtain it, he would be able to break away from the restrictions of his lowly birth and achieve great things. Army Breaker sucked in a deep breath like a whale. His chest puffed up and the bones in his body emitted explosive sounds. His robes fluttered without wind and his aura tumbled like boiling water. His eyes turned blood red. Die! Before his voice faded away, Army Breaker left behind a string of afterimages as he brazenly charged forward. The viewing platforms on both sides were in an uproar. No one imagined that Army Breaker, who had a rich demonic energy, a powerful mortal body, a demonic treasure in hand, and a divine sense that couldn't be underestimated, would actually be hiding such an astonishing speed attribute. Both sides were evenly matched in strength. If one of them suddenly rose in speed, just what would the result be? Everyone present was well aware of this. Bang! Zhu Blue Cloud smashed the table beside him. Zhang Zhang bit her lips, her face pale. Zhang Qingzu sighed. He really couldn't escape this. Chapter 48. Genius in a Second. Remember. Go. The high-level figures of the Alliance paled. Once Ning Qin was defeated, Canyon Dwell City would be handed over to the demonic path. The Alliance's hard-won efforts to stabilize itself would be wasted and the situation of the Southern Empire would become precarious. They began to regret agreeing to the demonic path's challenge. But now, it was too late to think of these things. Congratulations, young master, the outcome has been decided. Li Yunma happily said. Deep Sea Demon smiled. The several old demons' gloomy faces relaxed a great deal. As long as they smoothly seized Canyon Dwell City, Liang Taizu would take credit for it. Even if they were a bit dissatisfied, they could only suppress it. The outcome was already decided. Liang Taizu's taut heart relaxed. He looked at Qin Yu from afar, his lips curling up in a smile. In the end, you will die in front of me. Qin Yu lifted a hand. In this critical moment, he blocked Army Breaker's iron fist. He was sent flying backwards and crashed into the ground, his face pale. It's useless. I have already activated my bloodline. How many punches can you block? Army Breaker coldly said. You should be proud of yourself for forcing me to use my full strength. Chin-Yu shook his numb arm and smiled. This is your trump card. It's not much. Army Breaker remained expressionless. You have a sharp tongue. I don't want to waste any more time. Let's end this here. Whoosh, he burst forwards, his terrifying killing intent causing the heart to race. Bang, as the fist struck Army Breaker's chest, his complexion changed. This was because Chin-Yu didn't even try to block it, allowing it to fall. Just as he was about to retreat, an iron-like hand grasped his wrist. Chin-Yu lightly said, I've caught you. Bang, a fist punched out. Army Breaker roared out. Ignoring Chin-Yu's attack, he punched out once more. At nearly the same time, the two fists struck each other's chests. Like a giant drum being struck, bones groaned and groaned. In the blink of an eye, rubble flew into the air and dust rose up, submerging the two figures. The only thing that rang out was that a brutal battle of flesh and blood was taking place. The demonic path's expression darkened. They never thought that Chin-Yu would use such a stupid method to break through Army Breaker's advantage in speed. But the faster the punches were, the faster the punches were. Even if both sides had powerful mortal bodies, the final victor would still be the one who punched more. Thinking of this, the demonic path cultivators calmed down. But they couldn't help but praise Chin-Yu's ruthlessness and decisiveness. If it wasn't for the fact that he was ruthless enough to himself, Army Breaker's speed would have been more than enough to kill him. How could he have been dragged into this deathmatch swamp? How is this person like a cultivator of the righteous path? He's a living embodiment of the demonic path. Unfortunately, he was going to die today. His speed was fast and his fists were also fast. In terms of strength and mortal body, the result was just as the demonic path cultivators had expected. But they had miscalculated something. Bang, bang, his chest felt stuffy, and sticky blood began to flow out of his mouth, nose, and mouth. This was caused by his internal organs being destroyed. Every time he breathed, he felt a burning pain, as if he was being torn apart. Army Breaker's eyes widened. He really wanted to ask, why aren't you dead yet? He punched out 3 times and Chin-Yu was only able to punch out 1. From the start, Chin-Yu vomited blood and looked as if he would die at any moment. But now, Army Breaker was already heavily injured. He was still vomiting blood, but the power behind his punches hadn't weakened in the slightest. Every punch that landed on his chest caused his bones to tremble and groan. Faint cracking sounds entered his ears. This was the sound of flesh and bone breaking apart. As time passed, the previously confident Army Breaker began to feel fear. He felt as if he had fallen into a trap from the very start. How could a righteous path cultivator have such a terrifying mortal body? Army Breaker didn't want to believe this and he didn't want to face the possible results that would occur next. He could only wildly swing his fists, trying to strike Chin-Yu down. But his body became increasingly tired and the strength behind his punches began to rapidly decline. And what was terrifying was that Chin-Yu's fists were still as steady as before. They were heavy and overbearing, nearly causing his chest to explode. Army Breaker finally determined that he had been tricked. His eyes widened, revealing endless anger and unwillingness. But he couldn't change his fate. He never imagined that he would die like this. The incomparably bright future he had imagined suddenly lost all luster in his heart. His eyes darkened. But in the next moment, they erupted with an unprecedented brilliance. Since he was doomed to die, then he would drag him down with him. The aura within his body instantly became wild. But in the next moment, he stuffily coughed. It was like an iron nail had ruthlessly stabbed into his mind, causing his body to stiffen. He wasn't the only one with a powerful soul. Bang! The fist smashed into his face and his head exploded. Red and white matter splashed out in all directions and the headless corpse fell to the ground. It was over. When the rumbling sounds dissipated and the faint smell of blood filled the air, everyone knew that victory and defeat of the third match had been decided. Everyone on the demonic path viewing platform was overjoyed and overjoyed. The violent fluctuations just now couldn't have been hidden from them. Luckily, Army Breaker had been a step faster and killed his opponent, not giving him a chance to self-destruct. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to determine victory or defeat in the third match. He was truly worthy of being the #1 junior of my demonic path. He was truly formidable. It was unknown where the Righteous Path Alliance had found such a freakish character, but he had still been killed by Army Breaker in the end. Good. This was simply too good. The Alliance side was deathly silent. Everyone's complexions were gloomy to the extreme. Zhu Blucloud's eyes turned red and his body shivered. You bastard! You died, you actually died. He regretted dragging Ning Qin down with him. Otherwise, with his talent and potential, there was a high chance he would have reached nascent soul. Sorrow gushed out from Zhang Zhang's heart. Her eyes were red and she forcefully held back her tears. She felt an emptiness in her heart, so uncomfortable that she found it hard to breathe. Zhang Qingzu sighed. Ning Qin was too careless. Although he was strong, there was still a gap between him and Army Breaker. If he had refused to step on stage, how could he have ended up like this? The young are full of vigor, the young are full of vigor. Father! Zhang Zhang cried out. Zhang Qingzu shook his head. All right, father won't say anything. Don't be sad, everything will pass. He rejoiced once more that nothing had happened between Zhang Zhang and Ning Qin, otherwise that would have been a great deal of trouble. Liang Taizu let out a long breath. He straightened his back, his entire body seeming to emit light. He turned and smiled. Victory and defeat have been decided. From this day forth, Canyon Dwell City will belong to my demonic path. Ha! An old demon laughed. Apprentice nephew Liang is truly a heroic youth. Today, you have accomplished such a great merit. Your future is limitless. Liang Taizu cupped his hands across his chest. Senior praises me too much. This junior is still young and immature. Today's victory is all thanks to the guidance of all the seniors present. The credit was his and no one could take it away from him. Saying some beautiful words to please others was truly a good idea. As expected, the group of old demons smiled even wider, praising Liang Taizu as a dragon amongst men. Cough! Finally, someone coughed, interrupting them. Since victory and defeat have been decided, inform the Cultivator Alliance to fulfill the agreement. Good. I want to see just what sort of expression some of my old friends have right now. Another old demon cackled. After several rounds of humility, the old demon with the highest status and cultivation was elected. He looked at Liang Taizu with praise and then stepped forwards, proudly shouting, now that victory and defeat have been decided, when will you withdraw from Canyon Dwell City? The Alliance side fell deathly silent. Although they already knew that they would be defeated, hearing these words still caused the high-level figures of the Alliance to feel as if a boulder were pressing down on their chests. If they surrendered Canyon Dwell City, then all of the Alliance's efforts would collapse. It was unknown just how much more effort they would have to expend before they could regain their footing. Or perhaps, they would be completely routed by the demonic path. Several female cultivators amongst the second generation wept bitterly. Suddenly, a calm and slightly hoarse voice sounded out from the dust. Who said that I was defeated? The world fell deathly silent, as if everything had frozen over. Everyone looked towards the ruined valley, their faces filled with shock and shock. Paw, paw, the sound of footsteps rang out. The tall and straight figure of a youth gradually appeared. He walked out from the range of the dust and was exposed to everyone. His figure was in a distressed state and his black robes were severely damaged. But his expression was as calm as before. He cupped his hands together towards the Alliance viewing platform and said, "Fortunately, I didn't fail my mission." There was a collective gasp. With over 1,000 people gathered together, it was a truly spectacular sight. The Alliance side was filled with cultivators. Blood revived. Bursts of cheers erupted. Zhang covered her mouth and wept with joy. There was only a single thought in her mind: he was alive, he was still alive. After experiencing the great waves of life and death, the great ups and downs, her heart had unknowingly floated further and further away. Although Zhang Qingzu was pleasantly surprised, he was actually a bit embarrassed. Luckily, he had lowered his voice just now, otherwise that slap in the face would have been far too loud. Ning Qin had actually killed Army Breaker. There was no one else with such strength like him. To be able to recruit him as a son-in-law was simply a smile that could wake him up in his sleep. On the demonic path viewing platform, the atmosphere was so cold that it nearly froze the air. The old demon that had shouted at the Righteous Path Alliance to hand over Canyon Dwell City had a gloomy expression. He turned and glared at Liang Taizu, his cold voice coming out from between his teeth. "You had best give me an explanation." He turned and shot into the skies, vanishing without a trace. Although the remaining old demons hadn't left yet, their complexions were just as cold. The way they looked at Liang Taizu was in sharp contrast to just now. They had lost Mountain Shake Demon and also lost Army Breaker with his infinite potential. In the end, all of their efforts had been for naught. What bullshit, young heroes, dragons amongst men. Who said those words just now? Step out and I'll beat you to death. Li Yunma suddenly shouted out, "He is at the Foundation Establishment Realm, not Golden Core. The results of our early Golden Core competition are invalid." Zhu Bluecloud had already rushed into the valley. He swept his eyes over Qin Yu and saw that he was completely unharmed. As soon as he heard these words, he was immediately enraged. Bullshit. My brother Ning likes to pretend to be a pig to eat the tiger, so what? What Foundation Establishment Realm? I'll build your face. If you Demonic Path Foundation Establishment cultivators are so fierce, why don't you pull one out for me to see? Li Yunma wanted to argue further, but he was suddenly locked onto by several cold and gloomy eyes. He looked up to see the high-level figures of the demonic path glaring at him. He was so frightened that he swallowed his words back down. Although the demonic path was ruthless, they weren't unreasonable. A loss was a loss, but to use someone else's ability to hide their aura as an excuse was simply shameful. Of course, the reason they admitted defeat was because when Qin Yu fought with Army Breaker, he had used the strength of an early Golden Core, otherwise they would have already fallen out with him. But these old demons never imagined that Li Yunma would somehow find a loophole that could overturn the result of this battle. As long as they could make Qin Yu prove his Golden Core cultivation, the truth would be revealed. Liang Taizu roared out, "Come back." Li Yunma quickly drew back. Shua, demonic light flashed. Liang Taizu jumped down from the viewing platform and arrived in the valley. Zhu Bluecloud was vigilant. What? Are you flustered and exasperated? Do you want to shed all pretense of cordiality? Liang Taizu remained expressionless. A loss is a loss. No one in the demonic path will go back on their word. But I have some words to say to him. Qin Yu waved his hand. Zhu Bluecloud drew back to the side, but he still had an expression that said, "Don't mess around. I don't care what your name is, and I don't want to know it either. But I want to kill you. From the first moment I saw you, I wanted to kill you. It seems that my intuition was correct. You really are my nemesis. In my life, I have only fallen twice, each time heavier than the last, and both times have happened to you. Perhaps by the third time, I will die under your hands, so I will be the first to kill you. Liang Taizu suddenly smiled. He lowered his voice. Do you remember that day when you attacked? Everyone seems to think that you attacked for Miss Zhang Zhang, but I am well aware that you only attacked for that little girl. Her name is Gu Linghe, right? I originally thought that I would attack after I obtained Canyon Dwell City, but you made me taste an unprecedented failure. I am not happy at all. So, I will make my move very soon. I want you to watch her suffer all kinds of torture before she slowly dies. I guarantee you that I will accomplish this. Qin Yu was silent for a long time. Then, he suddenly said, You want to force me to attack and ruin this alliance meeting. Liang Taizu shook his head. You are a smart person, so you won't be so stupid. All I want is a chance to kill you. Give me this chance and I will let her go. How about it? Qin Yu looked up. All right. Zhu Blue Cloud anxiously said, Ning Qin, you have to think this through. I am very clear-headed. Qin Yu looked at Liang Taizu. 3 days from now, if you are still here, I will go to your tent. Liang Taizu chuckled. I welcome your arrival. Chapter 49. The righteous and demonic convocation came to an end. The demonic path kept their promise and would officially retreat 300 miles in 3 days, not provoking another battle for half a year. The reason it was set 3 days from now was because the high-level figures of the demonic path had a strong will. They wanted to see with their own eyes that the person who had caused the demonic path's defeat would be consigned to eternal damnation. Jiang Yuanhao's face darkened. What nonsense! How could Ning Qin agree to go to the demonic path's camp? I will never agree to this. The demonic path hates fellow Daoist Ning to the bone. If he steps into the demonic path's camp, isn't that the same as a sheep walking into a tiger's den? Another high-level alliance figure tried to persuade. Is there something that is difficult to say? There is no harm in telling us. The alliance will do everything we can to help fellow Daoist Ning overcome this crisis. That's right. Zhu Blue Cloud, you and fellow Daoist Ning are close friends. Are you going to watch him die and not try to persuade him to change his mind? These words caused Zhu Blue Cloud to become the target of public criticism. Facing the harsh gazes of many people, he bitterly smiled. It's useless no matter how much I try. This matter involves Ning Qin's privacy, so he must go. Everyone, don't waste your energy. Jiang Yuanhao frowned. Is there really no way to save him? Zhu Blue Cloud shook his head. He thought for a moment and said, Ning Qin told me that the alliance should make preparations early, but I'm not too sure what he means. The complexions of Jiang Yuanhao and the others changed. There were far too many meanings in these words. Just thinking about it left them startled. But how was that possible? He was going to step into the demonic path's camp. Just who below the nascent soul realm could do anything? But Ning Qin wasn't someone who spoke without thinking. Since he said this, did he really have something to rely on? Did fellow Daoist Ning Qin really say this? Zhu Blue Cloud said, How could I randomly say such words? Jiang Yuanhao looked up. He glanced at Qin Yu's seclusion area and suddenly said, Good, then I will no longer stop you. I hope that fellow Daoist Ning Qin can withdraw safely. He turned and said, Everyone, we should also make our preparations. Although the high-level alliance figures were whispering in their hearts, Qin Yu's performance had left them shocked. It wasn't impossible for him to do something earth-shattering. It wasn't wrong to be a bit more careful. The group left in a hurry. After sending away these people, Zhu Bluecloud let out a sigh of relief. He couldn't help but ruefully smile. I stepped into the demon's lair with my own strength and it's already difficult for me to survive, so why would I want to stir up any waves? To think that I would actually believe something so ridiculous. I really must have a problem with my brain. Zhang Zhang anxiously asked, Daddy, how is it? Zhang Qingzu's expression was gloomy as he fiercely slammed the table. Blindly arrogant, not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. This old man has really misjudged him. Ah! Zhang Zhang cried out in alarm. Senior Ning Qin still wants to go. Zhang Qingzu coldly coughed. Jiang Yuanhao, Sun Siyuan, and all the other high-level figures of the alliance tried to dissuade him, but he remained unmoved. He even had Zhu Bluecloud pass on a message for the alliance to make preparations early. What preparations? Did he really think he could stir up a storm in the demonic path camp? Just because you killed Army Breaker, you've inflated your ego to such an extent. Fortunately, there's nothing between you two. Otherwise, even if nothing happens today, you'll still be implicated by him in the future. Zhang Zhang coquettishly said, Dad, what nonsense are you talking about? Your daughter was only grateful to Senior Ning Qin for helping us. I didn't mean anything else. That's good. Even if you have any other thoughts, you should quickly cut them off. This Ning Qin isn't someone you can entrust your life to, so just pretend you never saw him. Humph. In any case, he doesn't have any chance of returning alive this time. Zhang Qingzu flicked his sleeves and left. Zhang Zhang opened her mouth but in the end didn't say anything. She was also puzzled. Why would Senior Ning Qin bring about his own destruction? Could it be, as her father said, that he had inflated his ego too much? If so, then it was far too disappointing. The third day. Qin Yu left his tent. Zhu Bluecloud, who was standing guard outside, hurried forwards. Ning Qin, it's not too late to change your mind. I will definitely go. Qin Yu shook his head. Have some confidence in me. Since I said I'm fine, then I'm sure I'll be fine. Remember, you still owe me a drink. Zhu Bluecloud shook his head. I hope you don't regret this. Qin Yu smiled. He stepped forwards and shot into the skies, flying straight towards the other side of Hidden Wind Valley where the demonic path camp was. In the Alliance camp, countless eyes watched him fly away. There were those that admired him, but there were even more that were puzzled and regretful. With such a bright future ahead of him, he had to enter the demon's lair alone. Wasn't this no different from seeking death? They just couldn't figure it out. Zhang Zhang bit her lips. As she watched him fly away, her eyes were a bit dazed. It was unknown just what she was thinking. Humph. My father said that Ning Qin is a proud and arrogant person. After winning the decisive battle, his ego swelled up. There will surely be a great calamity this time. My family's old ancestor also said this. He even said that Senior Jiang and the others went to persuade him, but Ning Qin remained unmoved. He even said that the alliance should prepare ahead of time. I think this is more than just arrogance, he simply doesn't know what he's doing. He's been blinded by victory. Just wait and see. There will be a time when he regrets this, but it will be too late. As the taunts and taunts of the second-generation young masters entered her ears, Zhang Zhang's heart swayed even more. Was it really as her father said, that Ning Qin's ego swelled up too much? Suddenly, a woman from the second generation said, I have a rumor that Senior Zhu Bluecloud accidentally revealed. The reason Ning Qin entered the demon camp alone is because he was threatened by the demonic path's little monarch, Liang Taizu. And it seems to be related to a woman. How is that possible? I've never heard of a woman close to Ning Qin. This is definitely a rumor. Ning Qin is already at the Golden Core realm and enjoys at least 500 years of life. How could he possibly give up his life for a woman? That's right, this is simply nonsense. Zhang Zhang's body stiffened. She couldn't hear the following words at all. There was only one thought in her mind. The reason Ning Qin entered the demonic path camp was because he was threatened by a woman. This had to be it. He broke into the demonic domain alone and crossed tens of thousands of miles to cut down demonic golden cores. Strength, temperament, and methods were all indispensable. How could he be blinded by a single victory? Then, who was Ning Qin doing this for? Zhang Zhang's heart raced. She recalled how Qin Yu had helped her scare away Liang Taizu and the others before the battle began. She subconsciously covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. It was her, it was all for her. And what saddened Zhang Zhang the most was that from start to finish, Qin Yu had never mentioned anything about her in exchange for her favorable impression. Like this, he silently withstood all the rumors and slander, shielding her from the wind and rain, nipping out all threats in the bud. With this knowledge, Zhang Zhang easily guessed what had happened. When Liang Taizu flew into the mountain valley that day, he had been threatening her. It wasn't difficult to confirm this since there were others present. Zhang Zhang turned and flew away. She soon found the worried Zhu Blue Cloud. Senior Zhu, please tell me, did Senior Ning Qin enter the demonic path camp for a woman? Zhu Blue Cloud subconsciously sighed. That's right, he really is an infatuated man. No matter how I tried to persuade him, it was useless. He actually came to give someone a chance to kill him. He suddenly regained his composure. He vigilantly asked, "How did you know?" Zhang Zhang's face was already streaming with tears. She turned and flew away. Zhu Blue Cloud was stunned. This seemed to be a misunderstanding. He thought about it and decided not to chase after her and explain things to her. Not to mention whether or not this girl would be able to keep her face, but whether or not Ning Qin would be able to return was another matter altogether. What meaning was there in mentioning these things? For me, it really was for me. Zhang Zhang's tears nearly dried up. Her heart felt so uncomfortable that it nearly burst apart. As Zhang Qingzu saw his beloved daughter's appearance, he was shocked. "Zhang Zhang, what happened to you? Did someone bully you? Daddy will take responsibility for you." "Father!" Zhang Zhang cried out in sorrow. She threw herself into his arms and cried, "He did it for me. He went to the demonic path camp for me. You misunderstood him, you all misunderstood him." Zhang Qingzu's face stiffened. "Zhang Zhang, what did you say?" "Lord Ning Qin was killed by Liang because of me. Taizu threatened me and only agreed to enter the demonic path camp and give Liang Taizu a chance to kill him. Father, your daughter is so sad, I'm so sad." The Zhang family cultivators were stunned. They had recklessly judged Ning Qin's arrogance just now, but they never imagined that the plot would have such a reversal. He was willing to die for Miss Zhang Zhang. Qiu Qiu was moved. Beside her, Gu Ling was already crying her eyes out. "Ling don't cry. For the miss to find someone who loves her so much, we should be happy. Moreover, Lord Ning Qin might not necessarily die. He will come back alive." Qiu Qiu comforted her, her eyes red. Gu Ling lifted a hand to wipe away her tears, but she couldn't wipe them clean. Not only was she moved, but she also felt an indescribable pain. When she was rescued by Lord Ning Qin, she had felt a sense of familiarity and closeness. She was afraid that others would laugh at her, so she didn't say anything. She looked in the direction he disappeared with teary eyes, the sorrow in her heart growing heavier and heavier, just like when her mother left in the past. "Brother Yuanhao, do you really think that Ning Qin can stir up a storm in the demonic path camp?" An old man frowned. Jiang Yuanhao was silent for several breaths of time. I don't think so, but it's always better to be cautious. I hope that he can come back alive. Several people around him sighed and shook their heads. Although they didn't say anything, they had already expressed their attitude. Coming back alive was easier said than done. Shua, Qinyu landed outside the demonic path camp. Several demonic cultivator guards had icy expressions, but there was a bit of admiration deep in their eyes. The person leading them stepped forwards. My lord, my husband is waiting for you in the tent. Please follow me. There was a deep respect in his voice. Lead the way. As he stepped into the demonic path camp, countless cold and gloomy eyes instantly gathered on him. The cold killing intent left one's heart trembling. Qinyu frowned for a moment before composing himself. This performance caused many demonic cultivators to raise their eyebrows, their killing intent rising even further. Such a character could not be allowed to grow. Today, he had to be cut down where he stood. If it weren't for the fact that Qinyu had been invited by Liang Taizu, there would likely have been some demonic path masters who couldn't restrain their killing intent and would have attacked him. The demonic cultivator leading the way stopped outside a magnificent black and red tent. He cupped his hands together and said, My husband is in the tent. My lord, please enter. Qinyu entered the tent. Liang Taizu clapped his hands in praise. Fellow Daoist is bold. Please sit. He leaned back in his chair, calm and composed, as if everything was within his grasp. Deep Sea Demon stood at the side, his eyes closed like a piece of dead wood. Qinyu stood still. He coldly said, There is no need to sit. I have already arrived, so how can you guarantee that you won't make things difficult for her in the future? Liang Taizu's eyes flashed. It seems that woman is incomparably important to fellow Daoist. I am a bit curious about the relationship between the two of you. Of course, that doesn't matter. Isn't the result what is most important? I vow that only Deep Sea Demon and I will know of this matter. After today, no matter what the result is, no third person will learn of it, otherwise I will suffer the punishment of 10,000 demons devouring my body. Qinyu turned and looked at Deep Sea Demon. Deep Sea Demon opened his eyes. He lightly said, Young master's words are my vow. Qinyu nodded. Good. Before his voice fell, he flicked his sleeves and the corpse sealing nail turned into a cold light that shot straight towards Deep Sea Demon. Deep Sea Demon's eyes exploded with a sharp light. You are seeking death. He lifted his hand and billowing demonic energy erupted, imprisoning the corpse sealing nail. But at this time, his complexion changed. Bang! The corpse sealing nail exploded. A terrifying strength tore apart the demonic energy. Caught off guard, Deep Sea Demon was shaken away. At the same time, Qinyu's figure moved. He stepped forwards, the ground shaking and blood-red flames ignited around his body. His speed rose 10 times over and he arrived in front of Liang Taizu in the blink of an eye, his fist punching out. Bang! His head shattered and white and red flew into the air. The demonic path's little monarch Liang Taizu had died. Chapter 50. Deep Sea Demon was crazed with rage. You killed Liang Taizu. You actually killed Liang Taizu. I will burn your bones to ashes. The aura of an 8th-level golden core wildly erupted. The entire tent was torn apart like paper and Qinyu was sent flying backwards, blood spurting out from his nose and mouth. The terrifying demonic energy was like a saber cutting into his forehead, tearing open a finger-long wound that revealed the white bone underneath. If it weren't for his powerful demonic body, this strike would have killed him on the spot. His chest tumbled and he saw stars in front of him. Qinyu roared out loud and shot into the skies. Strong winds howled over him, ripping off his damaged appearance-changing mask. Deep-sea demon howled, "You cannot escape." Bang! Billowing demonic energy soared into the sky. At this time, the entire demonic path camp had fallen into chaos. Deep-sea demons' roar had spread out, causing countless people to feel a chill run down their spines. After Liang Taizu's headless corpse was found, the eyes of all the old demons began to burn with cruel flames. In the demonic path's encampment, surrounded by so many powerhouses, the seven slaughter demon sect Saint Sun, a candidate for the demonic path Saint Monarch position, would be severely punished even with their status. Catch him. Soul extraction and soul refining. Never to reincarnate. Roaring, the old demons chased after them. Jiang Yuanhao fiercely looked up. In the direction of the demonic path camp, over a dozen terrifying auras erupted, all of them releasing a cruel killing intent. Even with his cultivation, he couldn't help but stiffen and feel a chill in his heart. A thought popped up in his mind, just what did Ning Qin do to anger the demonic path to such a degree? Whoosh, whoosh, a crimson shadow rushed into the sky, followed by a dozen devil flames. Jiang Yuanhao's pupils shrank. He roared out, "Raise the array." Fortunately, he had already prepared for this. A simple protective array formation shot into the skies and countless golden runes sparkled. In the blink of an eye, the blood shadow passed through the runes. With his alliance identity card, he naturally wouldn't be blocked by the array formation. Deep-sea demon punched out his fist. Vast and mighty demonic energy condensed into a tide that crashed into the array formation. The golden runes trembled and collapsed. Cultivators of the Southern Empire, if you dare stop me from killing this man, I will not rest until one of us is dead. An eerie roar resounded throughout the world. Jiang Yuanhao laughed coldly, "You all charged over, so the alliance naturally had to face you. Are we in the wrong?" "Humph." Deep-sea demon roared. "Wait until I kill this little thief and then I'll deal with you." Bang! A demonic chi erupted and chased after the crimson light. Whoosh, whoosh, another dozen streaks of terrifying demonic energy passed through the alliance camp. Soon, the alliance spies sent back news that Ning Qin had killed Liang Taizu in the Great Tent. The alliance cultivators were stunned. In the camp of the demonic path, in the Great Tent, he had directly killed Ning Qin. What a brave and fierce warrior. Jiang Yuanhao laughed. The righteous and demonic convocation had come to an end. This matter had been caused by Liang Taizu's provocation, so it was a personal vendetta that wouldn't affect the alliance. More importantly, it would crush the morale of the demonic cultivators for a second time. The invasion of the Southern Kingdom would probably end here. Ning Qin, as long as you can survive, there will be a place for you in the future of the Southern Empire. Zhu Blue Cloud was all smiles. It seemed that everything was within Ning Qin's grasp. If so, then what was there to worry about? So what if all the demonic path powerhouses came out? They would just be left to eat their dust. So that's what you look like. Hee, I have to say that you're a bit handsome, but there is still a gap between you and me. Zhang Qingzu's face stiffened. He felt as if the left side of his mouth had been slapped until it was swollen. He had actually killed Liang Taizu and had even escaped from the demonic path camp. This Ning Qin was simply too monstrous. He suddenly rejoiced that no one else knew what he had said before, otherwise it would be too late for regrets if Ning Qin had a rift in his heart. No, he had to pass down strict orders that no one was allowed to mention this matter again. His daughter had good eyesight and good luck. The first man she had taken a liking to was already so outstanding. And the key point was that Ning Qin also liked her. This was truly wonderful. Zhang Qingzu turned around, wanting to say something. But he saw that Zhang Zhang had a dazed expression, and the two maids beside her also had similar expressions. She hurriedly said, "What is it?" "Ning Qin is fine, so you should be happy." "Zhang, why do you look like this?" Zhang didn't speak, but tears began to flow down her cheeks. "Daughter, don't cry." Zhang Qingzu was shocked. He turned and scolded, "You too, tell me, what is the matter with the miss?" Qiu gulped. This person, the miss knows him." Zhang Qingzu's eyes brightened. "Are you talking about Ning Qin?" I was wondering why he was acting so strangely when he saw Zhang. "So it turns out that you already knew each other. That explains everything. Love at first sight is still rare. This is a good thing, a good thing. This means that he has always liked you." Zhang's tears flowed down even more. Zhang Qingzu panicked. Qiu, what is going on?" Qiu didn't dare to say anything more. As she thought back to the past, her face paled even further. "Master, Ling also knows him." "Ling speak." Gu Ling looked up at the miss. She timidly said, "The one who flew past just now was Big Brother Qin Yu." The little girl was filled with happiness. No wonder she had felt so close to him, it was because Ning Qin was Qin Yu. She thought of Ning Ling, that fairy-like big sister of hers. As she thought of Big Brother Qin Yu's alias, she was overjoyed. So it turned out that big sister Ning was her big brother's sweetheart. For them to be able to walk together, it was simply too compatible. But soon, Gu Ling was distressed. If Big Brother Qin Yu liked Big Sister Ning, then what about Big Sister Zhang? Wasn't she too pitiful? The little girl didn't know what happened at the Zhang mansion. She always thought that Zhang and Qin Yu were good friends. Zhang Qingzu frowned. Qin Yu, this name was a bit familiar. But he definitely wasn't someone important, otherwise he would have remembered it. Suddenly, his eyes widened and his breathing became heavy. He turned around, his eyes looking as if he wanted to eat someone. Zhang Hua's scalp tingled. "Honorable Master, it was him." As if he had been struck in the head, Zhang Qingzu's field of vision darkened. He swayed several times before standing up. He roared out, "Impossible. How could it be him?" Zhang wiped away her tears. "Father, don't say anything. It was him." She bit her lips so hard that they nearly bled. She continued to say, "When senior apprentice brother Zhang Hua spoke to him, I was in the shadows. I wouldn't be wrong." Zhang Qingzu's complexion paled. He pointed at his daughter and then at Zhang and the others. He sighed and said, "What did you do?" But he had forgotten that not too long ago, he had thought of Qin Yu and was extremely satisfied with Zhang Hua's actions. Don't bully the youth for being poor, don't laugh at the youth for being bitter. Perhaps only today would the Zhang family truly understand the meaning of these words. Zhang's tears flowed even more. Her heart was gnawed away by shame and remorse. She had been so cruel and merciless, and yet Qin Yu had still helped her. This left her feeling even more ashamed. Zhang Qingzu suddenly said, "No, that's not right. If Qin Yu can still act like this after you treated him like that, then that means he really does like Zhang. Perhaps there is still a chance to save him." A glimmer of hope appeared in Zhang's eyes. Was this really the case? At this time, Zhu Blue Cloud arrived. He swept his eyes around and frowned. He wasn't interested in the Zhang family's matters at all. He directly asked, "Which one is Gu Ling?" Zhang Qingzu squeezed out a smile. "Brother Zhu, what is this?" Zhu Blue Cloud said, "I was entrusted by fellow Daoist Ning Qin to bring Gu Ling away." Gu Ling was pleasantly surprised. "It's Big Brother Qin Yu." Zhu Blue Cloud's eyes flashed. He smiled and said, "That's right, it's Qin Yu." His appearance, name, and cultivation were all fake. "You brat, you are amazing." He warmly smiled. "Your big brother Chinyu has always been good to you." For you, he was willing to accept Liang Taizu's threat and step into the demonic path's encampment alone. But, he actually casually killed Liang Taizu. Ha ha ha, how wonderful. Zhang stiffened. So it was all because of Gu Ling, Chinyu had always been a proud and arrogant person since he was a child. After being hurt like that, how could he possibly like her again? Qiu, Zhanghua, and the others all fell silent. Zhu Blue Cloud frowned. What was wrong with these people from the Zhang family? Why were they all acting so strangely? But as he thought about it, he realized that Zhang had misunderstood Chinyu for her. Now that she learned the truth, it was indeed embarrassing. Cough. Zhu Blue Cloud's complexion didn't change. "Brother Zhang, I want to bring Gu Ling away. Do you have any objections?" Zhang Qingzu bitterly shook his head. "Brother Zhu, do as you wish." Zhu Blue Cloud nodded with satisfaction. "Gu Ling, come with me." Gu Ling, revealed a look of reluctance. Zhu Blue Cloud quickly said, "Chinyu is worried that you will be threatened by the demonic path again. Only by leaving with me can I guarantee your safety." Then, Gu Ling, could only agree. She had an apologetic expression. "Miss, Big Brother Chinyu, I have to leave." Zhang squeezed out a smile. "Ling, if you see Chinyu in the future, please pass on my thanks to him. Also, I was wrong in the past and I hope he can forgive me." After speaking, she couldn't help but run away in tears. Zhu Blue Cloud brought Gu Ling away. Zhang Qingzu irritably sent Qiu away with the miss. He gloomily looked around at everyone and coldly said, "I do not wish for any news of this matter to spread out, otherwise I will punish you according to the family law." Zhang Hua and the others hurriedly nodded. Su Wei and Tao Jie stiffened. Their expressions were a mixture of shock, bewilderment, disbelief, and all sorts of other emotions, making them look very strange. After a long time, Tao Jie gulped. "Junior apprentice brother Su, he is. Junior apprentice brother Chinyu." The two of them had outstanding talent and their backgrounds were clear. Not too long ago, they had been taken in as disciples by a wandering golden core cultivator, thus leading to today's scene. Su Wei's lips moved, but he only let out a long sigh. His back was much more stooped than before. He originally thought that with his 3 years of desperately cultivating, he would be able to catch up to Chinyu sooner or later. But, had Chinyu already become so formidable? Su Wei had a premonition that he would never be able to compare with Chinyu in this life. He would only be thrown further and further away until he could no longer see Chinyu's back. Deep Sea Demon crazily galvanized his demonic energy. The speed of a late golden core erupted to the limit. But in the end, he could only watch helplessly on as the blood-red light in front of him grew further and further away until it finally vanished from sight. How hateful! He roared out and punched the mountain top, his complexion ugly to the extreme. After a moment, demonic path powerhouses arrived one after another. Their faces were pale and they gasped for breath. They glanced at each other and could see the chaos in each other's hearts. "You are a righteous path cultivator. It's fine if you have the demonic treasure corpse sealing nail, but you actually cultivate the #1 escape technique of the demonic path, the blood escape art. Are you a demonic cultivator or are we demonic cultivators? Who didn't know that the blood escape art was terrifyingly fast and also consumed a terrifying amount of energy? It could burn away all the blood vitality of a golden core cultivator in just a moment, so how could it not work on you? Was there still any justice in this world? A blood-red light held forth, its speed unimaginable. It stirred up strong winds that pressed down on the treetops and stirred up great waves in the forest. Suddenly, the blood-red light scattered to reveal a black-robed cultivator. He landed on an ancient tree and turned around to make sure he was safe. Then, a smile lit up his pale face. The demon body combined with the blood escape art was truly formidable. Even a late golden core cultivator could escape with all his strength. This cultivator was Chinyu. He swept his eyes around. Then, he leapt down from the ancient tree. His figure flickered several times and he vanished deep into the forest. 5 days later, Chinyu emerged from a cave, his body brimming with blood vitality. The losses from using the blood escape art had been completely restored. After determining his direction, he took a step forwards and shot into the skies. 2 days later, Chinyu appeared outside a large city. The cultivators in the city were all smiles, all of them discussing the great victory of the alliance meeting. Killing Army Breaker in a frontal confrontation and cutting down Liang Taizu in the demonic paths camp, these two matters were talked about by countless cultivators. Ning Qin's name spread throughout the Southern Empire. It could be foreseen that as long as Chinyu revealed his identity, he would immediately become the focus of everyone's attention and receive the highest level of reception. In fact, he could even obtain a pivotal position in any sect of the Southern Empire and become an illustrious figure. But, he didn't seem to hear any of this. His black robes covered his figure as he soared towards the Alliance station in the city. Merit Department. I have already made a reservation ahead of time. Please help me complete the exchange. Chinyu lightly said from beneath the black robes. An hour later, the black-robed figure turned and left. The cultivators of the Merit Department all stood up to send him off. Before the high-level figures of the Alliance could catch up to him, Chinyu had already left the city. He used the blood escape art and with countless cries of alarm, vanished from everyone's sight. Chapter 51. This is the web, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Clouds and fog lingered between the mountains, covering the entire mountain valley. But these clouds and fog were like an illusion. No matter how bright the sunlight poured down, it reflected a faint halo of light in the valley's medicinal fields. The medicinal fragrance wafted through the air like a peerless delicacy. Yet, it was placed in front of you and you could eat it just by opening your mouth. This was truly a great test of a chicken's life. The chicken overlord stood next to a medicinal field. Its throat wriggled as it constantly gulped, its face full of confusion. Should I eat it? Or should I eat it? Its small eyes widened and it flapped its wings several times. Just as it was about to assume the posture of a hungry tiger, the fog outside the valley began to tumble. The chicken overlord fiercely turned its head, panic and fear in its eyes. It lifted its claws and lifted its wings, wanting to flee. But in the next moment, it revealed a look of pleasant surprise. In the blink of an eye, it had transformed into a mighty and unyielding appearance. Gwaw! With a loud cry, the chicken overlord flapped its wings and flew away, stirring up a gust of wind. It was quite imposing. This could be said to be a bleak wind and cold waters, but once this overlord leaves, I will never return. I am so loyal and devoted, I am so unafraid of death. No one can touch the medicine garden that master left behind. Chinyu walked out from the fog. The first thing he saw was the chicken overlord's loyal and devoted appearance. His lips twitched and he flicked his sleeves, sending it flying away. Oh whoa! Don't ask why, but if a chicken could make such a sound, it had to do so. Its body was sent flying away. It tumbled several times on the ground and lay there, motionless. Its cry was so pitiful and it fell so hard. But why did it still raise its wings to protect its face? It hadn't made any progress at all. Chinyu waved his hand and the bamboo dragonfly flew into his hand. He sensed that during the time he was away, nothing had happened in the mountain valley. He filled it with magic power once more and the bamboo dragonfly flew away. Then, he walked towards the wooden house. The chicken overlord was embarrassed. It struggled internally for 3 seconds and then jumped up, rushing towards Chinyu's feet and wagging its tail. Didn't you faint? Chicken overlord, I'll endure it. Stop wagging. You aren't a dog. Chicken overlord, I'll endure it. If you're acting, then go all out. You haven't changed your bad habit of protecting your face at all. And your face, is there a need to protect it? Chicken overlord, I'll continue. No, you can mock me, but you can't mock my face. Little Chin, you've gone too far. He raised his head valiantly, and just as he was about to shout to express the anger in his heart, several pills were thrown at his face. Ah, this familiar fragrance, my favorite smell, I'm drunk. What? You said face. What is that? Can it be eaten? The chicken overlord that was holding a bunch of pills had a look of disdain on its face. It looked at Lin Ming as if to say that he was too naive. Then, it turned around and bowed to its master, offering up 120% of its flattery. Little Chin. Who said that? Anyway, it wasn't me. If you want to say something, then show me the evidence. This overlord's words are not to be trifled with. Chin, you didn't bother with it. He strode into the wooden house and took out a storage bag. First, he placed the 2,000 gold mulberries on the ground and then took out a jade box. The jade box was 4 fingers wide and the size of a palm. It was blue in color and slightly cool to the touch. After removing the talismans on it, he opened it to reveal a knuckle-long pillar. The root was complete, but it was a bit dark and flashed with faint traces of green lightning. This was the Sky Thunder Bamboo. Chinyu had spent 2 days hurrying back. The large city he went to was where the Alliance headquarters was located. All of the 100 treasure list treasures were there, thus he was able to directly exchange for the Sky Thunder Bamboo. Otherwise, once he revealed himself he would inevitably fall into a great deal of trouble and it would be difficult for him to leave. As for the benefits he could obtain after revealing his identity, Chinyu was well aware of that. But, he also knew that he couldn't take it. Otherwise, his identity as an outer court disciple of the Eastern Mountain sect would be exposed sooner or later. At that time, wouldn't it be the same as telling others that there was something fishy about him? He couldn't do anything that sought death. Obtain the heavens. The most important thing now was for the Sky Thunder Bamboo to break into the Golden Core realm as soon as possible. With his current strength, once he broke through to the Golden Core realm he would be able to take another step further. At that time, as long as his nascent soul didn't leave the 100,000 territories of the Southern Empire, he would have nothing to fear. He flipped his hand and a jade bowl appeared. He placed the Sky Thunder Bamboo within with the 1,000 gold mulberry. Looking at the withered Sky Thunder Bamboo, Chinyu coldly sneered. It had been cut down to the length of a knuckle and yet it still had the nerve to say that it had grown for 800 years. The crux of the problem was that the Sky Thunder Bamboo was in a withered state. Without a solution, it wouldn't be able to live for too long. If it weren't for the little blue lamp in his hand, he would have long since turned hostile upon seeing the Sky Thunder Bamboo in such a state. Now, he just had to wait for night to fall. Half a year later. Peepa, Chinyu sat cross-legged beneath the Sky Thunder Bamboo that was half the height of a man. Green lightning submerged his figure. A tingling sensation spread out from his bones, like countless ants biting and crawling on his skin. Although he had experienced this countless times, his body was still tense and sweat streamed down his body. Faint traces of dark gray mixed with the sweat flowed out from his pores, emitting a faint stench. 2 hours later, the green arcs of lightning scattered. Qin Yu's eyes flashed open. Divine light exploded within them, and deep within them, the phantom of thunder flashed. He stood up and walked into a nearby wooden tub. As he submerged himself in the hot water, he let out a comfortable groan. Leaning against the wooden tub, his breathing gradually calmed down. A tide of exhaustion washed over him and he fell into a deep sleep. But in just a moment, he opened his eyes, his expression radiant. As he sensed the state of his body, a smile appeared on his face. Every 100 years, the sky thunder bamboo would grow a single section that was less than 4 fingers long. In the second half of the year, the little blue lamp would grow 15 sections, roughly 1 section every 12 days. Every day, the sky thunder bamboo would grow at an accelerated rate of 8 years. If this sky thunder bamboo was 800 years old, then it was now 2,300 years old. From this, it could be seen that the little blue lamp's speed of growth for spirit plants wasn't the same. Depending on the species, the speed would vary. At the very least, when it came to accelerating the growth of the sky thunder bamboo, it was far faster than ordinary spirit plants. In the current cultivation world, spirit plants that were over 1,000 years old could be called priceless treasures. As for those that were over 2,000 years old, that was something that only large sects with great inheritances could possess. As for the sky thunder bamboo, it was worthy of its reputation as an ancient spirit plant. The power of thunder it released had an astonishing effect on cleansing the body. Qin Yu could clearly feel that the remaining medicinal efficacy in his body was decreasing. But this wasn't enough. At this time, his body was like a wooden tub filled to the brim with water. Any more and he might explode. Qin Yu couldn't take any more risks. He had to break through to golden core in a single attempt. Luckily, as it grew older, the power of thunder released by the sky thunder bamboo would become increasingly strong. It wouldn't take too much time to completely eliminate the remaining medicinal efficacy in his body. In the blink of an eye, another half a year passed. With a deep roar of pain, the last bit of medicinal efficacy in Qin Yu's body was eliminated by the thunder. The rich green lightning scattered to reveal his distressed figure. Sweat soaked through his white inner clothes and a faint black stench assailed the nostrils. Beside him, the sky thunder bamboo was already as tall as a person. Its branches and leaves were lush and vibrant with green arcs of electricity leaping around it. Fluctuations of thunder that caused one's heart to tremble. According to a normal calculation, it was nearly 5,000 years old. If this sky thunder bamboo were converted into spirit stones, it would be worth no less than 1 million. This was enough to cause a large sect to fight over it. But at this time, Qin Yu no longer had any thoughts about the sky thunder bamboo. The medicinal efficacy had been completely eliminated and his breakthrough to golden core was imminent. 100 miles away from the mountain valley, in a hidden mountain stream, Qin Yu formed law seals with his hands. The great array formation laid down by the array disk was activated. The invisible aura of the array formation blocked out this area, preventing the outside world from sensing it. Today, he would break through foundation establishment and reach golden core here. With a flick of his sleeves, 30,000 spirit stones scattered around him, forming 6 small spirit stone mountains. Qin Yu sat down on one of them and swallowed several essence-augmenting pills. A powerful medicinal efficacy rapidly spread through his body, supplementing his losses. When breaking into golden core, he needed to absorb a massive amount of spiritual strength in a short period of time. This was where these spirit stones would come in handy. Suddenly, because Qin Yu was intentionally suppressing his energy within his Dantian Sea, the great Tao base that had been in a quiet state suddenly erupted with light. Countless beams of light gathered at the center, as if a great sun was about to rise. Multicolored clouds illuminated the world, so dazzling that one couldn't look directly at them. Qin Yu's body trembled and blood vessels bulged out beneath his skin. The impact of magic power had already begun. After failing to make 17 breakthroughs and purifying his magic power, it was more than enough to smoothly form his golden core. This was what happened. The great Tao base trembled and a dazzling brilliance shot into the heavens from the center. This was the light of a golden core. Qin Yu's aura suddenly changed, becoming dignified and dignified. An invisible suction force erupted and the 30,000 spirit stones trembled. Boundless spiritual strength surged out, howling into Qin Yu's body like a broken dam. At this time, the great Tao base in his Dantian Sea suddenly trembled. An invisible strength arrived, forcefully breaking apart the golden core he was about to condense. Bang! Magic power stormed out. Qin Yu's eyes flashed open. The flesh and blood on the surface of his body began to crack apart. Countless cracks appeared all over his body and blood gushed out like fountains. The ground shook and collapsed. 30,000 spirit stones howled into the air. The arrayed discs they laid down wailed as they were crushed by the terrifying aura. A low and deep explosion rang out like a thunderclap, spreading out from deep within the mountain forest. Qin Yu fell backwards, as if he were being fried. Even someone as powerful as the demon body couldn't withstand such a horrifying magic power backlash when his golden core was about to form. It completely collapsed. Why did he fail? This was the first thought that crossed his mind. His second thought was that he couldn't stay here any longer. Qin Yu struggled to stand up. This simple movement caused his field of vision to darken. If it weren't for his firm will he would have fainted already. He took out several pills and swallowed them down. Ignoring the 30,000 spirit stones, he staggered away. His breathing became increasingly heavy and his collapsing mortal body gradually turned cold. Qin Yu didn't know how far he had gone, but he knew that his time was up. He leaned against a stone and his body slid to the ground. He struggled to find a comfortable posture and then fell silent. Everything had gone according to plan and he had been careful enough, so why had he failed and even lost his life? Qin Yu frowned. He couldn't understand. If he were to die like this, he really wouldn't be willing. The sound of footsteps echoed out. They were light and belonged to a woman. Qin Yu didn't look up. He was still searching for an answer in his heart. The person who came spoke. Her voice was pleasant to the ears, like an aureole. It really was a woman. You can't figure out why you failed, right? Qin Yu looked up. Another wound had opened up on his neck, revealing bright red flesh and blood. But, he didn't seem to feel it at all. You know. His vocal cords were damaged and his voice was hoarse, but it was surprisingly calm. The woman's eyebrows arched up. She smiled. You're calmer than I thought. Qin Yu said, that's because I know I'm going to die, so what else is there to worry about? I'm not lying to you, I really am going to die soon. So, if you want to tell me the truth, you better hurry up, otherwise it will be too late. The woman walked to his side and traced Qin Yu's face with her fingers. Then, she placed the blood-stained finger into her mouth and her eyebrows relaxed, revealing an intoxicated expression. It really is the taste of the demon body, Qin Yu frowned. I don't care what sort of treatment I receive after I die, but can you wait until I close my eyes before we begin? Are you afraid? Just disgusting. The woman had an amused expression. Have you eaten human flesh before? Qin Yu was silent for several breaths of time. I've only seen it before. With a charming laugh, the woman gently stroked his face. She whispered, don't worry, how could I bear to let you die? Her nails cut into her white palm and purple blood flowed into the wound. A burning hot feeling spread out, as if countless soldering irons were forcefully welding together the damaged parts of his body. Qin Yu didn't say a word. He simply fainted. The woman was stunned for a moment before she smiled. What an interesting fellow. Chapter 52. Faintly, Chin-yu could feel that someone was taking care of him. As soon as the food he drank fell into his stomach, it turned into a billowing burning sensation. Then, his barely condensed consciousness was smashed to pieces by the wild pain. He didn't know how much time passed. 1 day, 2 days, 1 year, 2 years. When Chin-yu finally exhausted all of his strength to open his eyes, the light of the setting sun sprinkled through the window. The faint yellow light illuminated a messy dress, and then the smooth and perfect back of the woman next to him. She was leaning against the wooden barrel as if she had fallen asleep. But just as Chin-yu's gaze fell upon her, the woman opened her eyes. Whoosh, waves of water washed over his face. Chin-yu closed his eyes and opened them again. She was neatly dressed and standing at the edge of the bed. Beads of water dripped down her long hair. She smiled and said, "Do I look good?" The voice was pleasant to hear and the scene was tempting, but Chin-yu's heart was icy cold. He shook his head, his bones crackling. The woman narrowed her eyes as if to see if he was lying. Finally, she snorted and stood up straight. She was very tall and had a devilish figure, so this bathing picture became even more eye-catching. Chin-yu closed his eyes. A light chuckle sounded in his ears. The woman said, "It seems that you aren't as bold as you appear." Chin-yu said, "Thank you, miss, for saving me, but I don't think we know each other." The woman's eyes were playful. "Is that so? But why do I feel like you've already recognized me?" Chin-yu simply shook his head. "It doesn't matter if you don't want to admit it. I've never forgotten you, the man who injured me back then. Now, open your eyes." Chin-yu thought for a moment and couldn't refuse. He looked at the familiar face and helplessly shook his head. "So it's Miss Yuchi." "Indeed, enemies are bound to meet in this world." Yuchi covered her mouth and laughed. "The road isn't narrow. Big sister already had my eyes on you during the righteous and demonic convocation, but you ran too fast. It took me a great deal of effort to find you. It was when you failed your breakthrough and nearly blew yourself up." Chin-yu bitterly smiled. "There is no need to rub salt into someone's wounds. Your wounds haven't healed yet, so how could there be scars?" Yuchi's eyes flashed. "Big sister is really curious, just how did you manage to cultivate the demon body?" Chin-yu said, "If I said it was a coincidence, would miss believe me?" Yuchi chuckled. "I do. Because besides some dog shit luck, I can't think of anyone who can cultivate the demon body in this place." Chin-yu thought for a moment. "Miss not killing me is related to the demon body." Yuchi winked at him. "Little brother is so smart." "Why?" "I'll tell you when I'm better." "Miss Yuchi, aren't you afraid that I'll harm you after I recover?" Yuchi's eyes turned cold. "Little brother, aren't you afraid that your words will bring about a fatal disaster?" Chin-yu shook his head. "If the miss wanted to kill me, she would have already done so." "Hee, I can't scare you." "How boring." Yuchi smiled. "Rest well. Since big sister saved you, I'm not afraid of any backlash, unless you never want to condense a golden core again in your life." Chin-yu's complexion changed. Yuchi revealed a proud look on her face and turned to leave. "Wait. Is there anything else, little man? Although I am very honored to bathe in your bathwater, considering that you are at a great disadvantage in this matter, please help me dry it." Yuchi's body stiffened. She clenched her teeth and turned around. "Do you really want me to wipe it?" Her voice was soft and beautiful, her face blushing red and her eyes glistening with tears. Chin-yu smiled. "I'll dry it now." "Humph." Yuchi turned and left. After a while, the bamboo dragonfly flew into the window. After determining that she had truly left, Chin-yu collapsed onto the bed. He gasped for breath several times, beads of sweat covering his forehead. It seemed that Yuchi wouldn't kill him for the time being. That was enough. His mind relaxed and Chinyu fell into a deep sleep. Space outside the wooden cabin fluctuated and Yuchi's figure walked out. She lifted a hand and caught the bamboo dragonfly, a smile on her face. What a cautious little fellow. But in front of Big Sister, you are still too tender. She swept her eyes over the lush and verdant medicine fields. Seclusion. Her eyes flashed for a moment before she composed herself. Chinyu woke up once more. When he opened his eyes, he saw Yuchi's pale face. Purple blood flowed from her fingertips into his mouth. His stomach felt like it was on fire, but his limbs and bones were actually warm and comfortable. Yuchi had a languid expression. How do you feel? Chinyu finally knew what he had been drinking when he was unconscious. A complex light flashed in his eyes. He smiled. Much better. Their tongues touched fingertips. Faint traces of electricity spread out and the two of them stiffened. Yuchi drew back her finger. Demonic light flashed and the wound healed. She calmly said, in order to save you, Big Sister suffered a great loss. You must remember this. Chinyu said in a low voice, the debt of saving my life is heavier than a mountain. If Miss asks, I will do my best. You can even commit arson. I won't tease you anymore. If it were that simple, Big Sister would have solved it myself. There would have been no need to go through so much trouble. Chinyu coughed. Miss Yuchi, what do you want me to do? Yuchi lazily looked at him. Are you that curious? Forget it, it doesn't matter if I tell you. Big Sister wants to go somewhere and the demon body is the key. As long as you help me take what I want from there, Big Sister will tell you how to break into Golden Core. Chinyu had a solemn expression. Is Miss speaking the truth? Yuchi said, of course, Big Sister wouldn't lie to you. She stood up. I'm tired, so I'm going to sleep. You can continue resting. Oh, this bamboo dragonfly is for you. This Big Sister likes to sleep naked, so don't peep on me. Chinyu, he didn't know what status Yuchi had, but to Chinyu, her blood was the best medicine in the world. His collapsed demon body gradually regained its vitality and began to recover at an astonishing speed. With such serious injuries, even if others managed to preserve their lives, they would still be bedridden for the rest of their lives. But in a short month, Chinyu was able to leave his bed and walk. Half a year later, his injuries were nearly healed. Creak, Chinyu pushed open the door and stepped out. Bathed in the sunlight that he hadn't seen in a long time, he stretched his waist. His bones crackled and popped as he exhaled. Within his chest, his heartbeat was strong and forceful, pushing blood to flow through his entire body. Every inch of his flesh and blood contained an explosive strength. Break and rebuild. At this time, the demon body was nearly twice as powerful as it was before. Yuchi gently sighed. You obtained a blessing in disguise. This Big Sister's strength has been greatly damaged. This wasn't a lie. Perhaps because she had lost too much blood, her complexion was pale and her aura was a bit shaky. Chinyu bitterly smiled. This sort of blessing in disguise is something I don't want to experience a second time. He then obediently helped Big Sister. Once I accomplish my wish, you will be able to break into Golden Core and you won't have this sort of trouble in the future. Chinyu nodded. When do we leave? There's no hurry. There's still 3 months. Chinyu said, that's also good. Miss Yuchi, can you return my storage bag to me now? Yuchi said in a low voice, I'm sorry, Big Sister forgot. But the smile on your face is far too insincere. Several storage bags were tossed over. Yuchi's voice was gloomy. I never thought that little brother would be so rich. But why is it that everything inside belongs to demonic path cultivators? Qin Yu shook his head. If they want to kill me, what can I do? Yu Qi coldly sneered. Can you be any more shameless? Demonic path's evil star. The last 4 words were clearly emphasized. Qin Yu shrugged, as if he didn't know what she was talking about. He stepped forwards and shot into the skies. I have a pet I'm raising. I don't know how it is doing, but I'll go take a look first. I'll be back soon. Yu Qi clenched her teeth and stamped her feet. She didn't know why, but she always suffered losses in front of Qin Yu. This bastard, if it weren't for this old lady, would have taught you a lesson. After flying out of the mountain valley, Qin Yu probed the storage bag with his divine sense. There wasn't a single thing missing, but there was actually a little toy inside. This was a common-looking little stone. It was placed in one of the storage bags, but it didn't respond to Qin Yu's divine sense. If it weren't for Qin Yu being careful, he wouldn't have discovered it. A thoughtful look appeared in his eyes. Qin Yu's figure flickered and he fell into the mountain forest. After a moment, he flew straight into the distance. An hour later, Yu Qi quietly landed on a large tree. With a dignified expression, she carefully pushed aside the branches and leaves in front of her. Then, she froze. A round black and white wild boar was lying comfortably in the shade of the trees, sleeping soundly. There was a storage bag tied around its neck. Yu Qi's face flushed red. She angrily screamed, "Qin Yu, you bastard!" Oh, the wild boar was startled awake. Its short legs flailed and it crazily ran away. The storage bag tied around its neck swayed in the wind, as if it were mocking Qin Yu. And at this time, that bastard Qin Yu had already appeared 100 miles away, in a hidden mountain valley. The valley was lush with grass and there was a stream flowing through it, forming a small lake. Just as he appeared, there was a "gwa" sound. The chicken overlord flew out from its hiding place, an excited expression on its face. Half a year ago, it had been sent here by Qin Yu. It didn't do anything but stare at the small lake, feeling bored to death. In particular, as it thought about how it hadn't been here for half a year and how many more hats had been placed on its head, it felt even sadder. Qin Yu relaxed a little. He smiled and said, "All right, I know you've been wronged. I'll make it up to you in the future." Has anything happened in this past half year? The chicken overlord shook its head. It puffed out its chest and looked up, as if saying that with this overlord here, no one would dare to act presumptuously. Qin Yu turned and jumped into the lake. Soon, he flew out from the surface. Magic power surged and water vapor rose up from his body. In his hand was a gold and silver thread storage bag. Probing it with his divine sense, he found that the little blue lamp, 1,000 gold mulberry, sky thunder bamboo, and a massive number of pills were all intact. Qin Yu smiled, overjoyed. Luckily, before he broke into the golden core realm, he had a sudden impulse and moved all of his important items into this storage bag and hid them in this lake. Otherwise, he feared the secret of the little blue lamp would have been exposed. "Gwa, gwa," he was asking for credit. Qin Yu took out a jade bottle. "There are 50 spirit pills inside. Do not return to your dwelling for the next 4 months. Do you understand?" The chicken overlord nodded and bowed. Holding the jade bottle in its mouth, it turned and flew away. As it flapped its wings, no matter how one looked at it, it seemed impatient and impatient. That's true, to suddenly become an ascetic monk from night to night, no one would be able to take it. Qin Yu put away the storage bag. After sweeping his eyes around to make sure he didn't leave behind any traces, he soared into the skies. For an entire month, Yu Qi's face was cold and her aura was unfriendly. Perhaps there was a kind of embarrassment and resentment in her heart, as if she had been hunting geese all year round, only to be pecked in the eyes by chickens. Qin Yu happily closed the door to his room and cultivated. After the demon body was broken and rebuilt, it had become twice as powerful and could withstand even more magic power. Although the taste of his body exploding was unforgettable, he still decided to continue cultivating. Perhaps this was what it meant to know that there was a tiger on the mountain, but one would still walk towards it. Of course, in Yuqi's eyes, he was a typical example of someone who didn't know how to write the word death. Chapter 53. The sky was hazy. Even though it was a clear day, there was still a gloomy atmosphere. The land was barren, and not a single blade of grass grew. Strong winds howled, stirring up dust and sand. The sounds of sobbing filled the air, and when one's vision became blurry, a chill seeped out from the depths of one's heart. Whoosh, whoosh, two beams of light landed on the top of the low mountain one after the other. When the light faded, the two figures were revealed. The young man was tall and had an imposing appearance, while the woman was tall and charming, with a hot body. These two people were Qin Yu and Yuqi. It had already been 14 days since they left the mountain valley, and they had crossed tens of thousands of miles to enter the territory of the Northern Dynasty. Yuqi took out a compass. It was a mixture of black and red as if it was dyed with blood. She lowered her head and looked at it carefully for a while. Then, she put it away and said, "We will arrive in another day." Qin Yu's eyes flashed. "Miss, can you tell me where we are going today?" Yuqi's eyes were filled with grief. "Little man, you really don't trust me." Qin Yu remained unmoved. "Trust is built on a foundation of honesty." Yuqi began to weep. "You are so magnanimous to me." Not long after the storage bag incident, there was a change in the Sky Thunder bamboo. Qin Yu had forcefully refused Yuqi's approach, thus she bore a deep grudge against him. Qin Yu remained expressionless. "My refusal is a private matter, completely different from Miss Yuqi's concealment." How could the two be mentioned in the same breath? He paused for a moment and then faintly said, "If Miss continues to refuse, I can only apologize and withdraw from this matter." Yuqi's complexion changed. She could feel the decisiveness in his words. She clenched her teeth. "You are ruthless." The place she wanted to go was called the Land of Sealed Demons. It had nothing to do with righteous path cultivators, but was a place where the demonic path sealed away demonic cultivators. In any force, there would be those that were not accepted or those that were detested. The demonic path was no exception. Of course, those that had the qualifications to be exiled into the Land of Sealed Demons were all extremely powerful demons. How could the weak have the qualifications to be so insolent? They would have long since been killed to bits. Yuqi wanted to find something in the Land of Sealed Demons. As for what it was, she didn't say and he certainly wouldn't ask. "Now that you know everything, you don't have any objections, right?" Yuqi bitterly said. Just now, she had been gnashing her teeth in hatred, and now she had this sort of appearance. She was a demoness, and this was just too appropriate. Qin Yu bluntly said, "I have an opinion. As you said, the Land of Sealed Demons is a land where the demonic path suppresses all demons. Although you've played it down, the strength of the demons inside should be terrifying, right? If the two of us go in, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to come out alive." Yuqi's face was calm. Her charming allure was completely swept away, and she actually emitted a tranquil and indifferent aura. "Of course there is danger, but it isn't as terrifying as you think. They have already been sealed for many years. Even if they don't die, their cultivation will be greatly reduced. Moreover, the seal of the Land of Sealed Demons is suppressing them. As long as you and I don't look for trouble to open the seal for them, there shouldn't be any problems." Qin Yu fell silent. Yuchi sighed softly. Little man, you are really greedy. Forget it, big sister will be honest with you. There seemed to be something wrong with those words. The root cause of your failure in breaking into the Golden Core realm lies in cultivating the demon body. It is a very tyrannical body transformation method that does not allow any other strength to surpass it. Thus, you need to evolve the demon body first in order to increase your magic power and reach Golden Core. To evolve the demon body, you need to swallow powerful demon blood. Since you have successfully cultivated it, you should know just how important demon blood is to the demon body. You should be able to tell whether or not I'm right. Yuchi smiled. And the land of sealed demons is the only place in the world that meets the requirements for demon blood. Do you want to go? Qin Yu's eyes shined. After a long time, he nodded. I understand. He closed his eyes and began to meditate. Yuchi's eyes flashed. She didn't speak further. 2 hours later, the two shot into the skies, flying deep into the barren lands. To the north of the Southern Empire was the Northern Dynasty. It was 3 times the size of the Southern Empire, but its population was less than half that of the Southern Empire. This was because the Southern Empire was a vast expanse of barren lands. According to the legends, the barren lands were cursed in ancient times and their vitality gradually severed. Although there was no evidence, it was an indisputable fact that for countless years, anyone who stepped into the barren lands would often die a violent death. Over time, there were very few people left. At this time, Yuchi and Qin Yu were deep within the largest barren lands of the Northern Dynasty. The blazing sun hung high above their heads, but they couldn't feel any heat at all. The cold air in the air was so cold that it nearly froze one's blood. Without warning, the earth violently trembled. A crack tore through the earth, rudely rushing into their field of vision. A faint black energy overflowed from it, mixing with an icy chill that caused icicles to form in the void. In the blink of an eye, snow began to fall from the skies. The snowflakes were black. Qin Yu's complexion changed. Even with his current strength, he actually felt threatened by the chill contained within the snowflakes. Yuchi's eyes brightened. She turned her hand and took out 2 tokens. They were ancient and mottled, and their aura was similar to the compass she had played with before. This is a guardian token. With this, you can enter the land of sealed demons for the first time. Do not leave it. Qin Yu received it. A cold aura entered his body and his mind became clear. He looked at the black snowflakes again without any fear. Yuchi flicked her sleeves and a purple vine appeared from the demonic energy. It stretched out like a living person and began to speak. I can finally come out to get some fresh air. Miss, how about we discuss it and let me come out more in the future? Although I am a demon vine, I also have the right to pursue a better quality of life. Yuchi's eyes narrowed, a dangerous light surging in them. Little demon vine, what did you say? I didn't hear you. Can you say it again? Puff, the demon vine's 5 limbs, no, it was many limbs that fell to the ground. Its body was far too large, and there was a dull thumping sound as it spoke in a flattering voice, Miss, you are as beautiful as a flower and as beautiful as a moon. You are as beautiful as an immortal. You have the bearing of an immortal, your looks are unparalleled, your twin peaks are proud, shut up. Yuchi breathlessly shouted. Qin Yu's lips twitched. The demon vine had a confused expression, as if it couldn't figure out why a method that had worked so many times didn't work this time. It looked at Qin Yu and blinked its eyes, as if it were suddenly enlightened. This stab was simply chilling to the heart. In any case, Yuchi's face was flushed red. Suddenly, the demon vine sucked in a deep breath, panic-stricken. Miss, his aura, shut up. Yuchi slapped Mo Tang and sent him flying. She probably had the heart to eat him. The demon vine's body drew a beautiful arc in the air as it tumbled to the ground. But why are you protecting your face? Qin Yu's complexion became even stranger. Yu Qi saw this and her face was so red it seemed as if it would bleed. If you dare to speak another word of nonsense, I will punish you by not coming out for 10 years. Don't. This pitiful cry was absolutely perfect. It was filled with sorrow, pleading, and hesitation. This was a series of emotions that would make someone in a superior position feel satisfied. Compared to this demon vine, the chicken overlord was at most similar in appearance. It was far from being able to compare. Miss, I know I was wrong. I will definitely listen to you in the future. Please be magnanimous. The demon vine flew forwards to admit his mistakes. But why are you blinking at me? Roll out and scout the way. Understood. It really rolled out. Qin Yu's face was tense, not saying a single word. Yu Qi's face was icy cold. If you want to laugh, then laugh. Qin Yu frowned. Is this okay? Yu Qi wanted to bite him. What sort of answer was this? What was the meaning of this? Just as she was about to erupt with rage, Qin Yu looked away. He earnestly said, "Is the land of sealed demons beneath the crack?" Yu Qi's complexion paled. She coldly snorted and gave up. The demon vine rolled to the side of the crack. The snowflakes that fell on its body bounced off, unable to cause any damage. It turned its head and winked at Qin Yu a few times before stretching its tentacles into the crack. Suddenly, the demon vine's eyes widened and it screamed out in pain. Its body violently shook like a sieve, as if it would collapse at any moment. Qin Yu's heart shrank. He glanced at Yu Qi from the corner of his eye. Her face was cold and expressionless. With a thought, he calmly stood where he was. After a long time, the demon vine rolled back, its face filled with hidden bitterness. There was simply no one else like it. Yu Qi reached out a hand, demonic energy lingering around her. If there's no problem, then roll back. The demon vine shrank its head. It jumped up and its body rapidly shrank, submerging into the demonic energy and vanishing from sight. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. This time he could clearly see that the demon vine hadn't been put into a storage bag. Rather, it seemed to have directly fused into her body. Let's go. Yu Qi flew into the crack. Qin Yu took a deep breath. He stepped forwards and jumped in. The crack was extremely deep. In several breaths of time, they had sunk 1,000 feet, but they still hadn't reached the end. Yu Qi flicked her sleeves. Demonic energy condensed into black clouds that supported the two of them. Qin Yu's eyes widened. He thought back to 3 years ago when there was another girl who had carried him like this. Yu Qi sensed his absent-mindedness. Her lips curved up in a smile. Are you thinking of that damned girl from the Ning family? Qin Yu frowned. He turned around. I don't know what sort of grudge you have with senior apprentice sister, but she has already passed away. I hope you can show some respect. Yu Qi's eyebrows shot up, anger burning in her heart. What a good Qin Yu. You haven't been angry with me for over half a year, but because of this little hussy you actually want to get angry with me. Something doesn't seem right. Passed away. Who passed away? Could it be? A strange expression flashed on her face. When did this happen? How come I didn't know about it? Qin Yu faintly said, 3 years ago. Yu Qi's anger dissipated. She honestly nodded. All right, I'll give you some face. I won't mention it in the future. She turned around and nearly burst into laughter. Who told you to be angry with me? Go and grieve yourself, I'll pretend like I don't know anything. Qin Yu was surprised. He didn't think she would be so easy to talk to. After a moment of hesitation, He cupped his hands together and said, "Thank you, Miss Yuchi." "Yuchi, my stomach hurts." She quickly changed the topic. "Be careful, we're almost there." Chin-yu looked up. The crack in the earth had reached its end and the light above their heads had turned into a thin line. It was unknown just how deep they went. Shwa, the demonic clouds scattered and the two of them landed on solid ground. A cave appeared in front of them. There was no aura coming out from it, but it was pitch black, like the deepest night in the world. Yuchi composed herself. She took out a gray jade archive. "Use your blood to feed it. Don't worry, just 3 drops will be enough." Chin-yu flicked his finger. 3 drops of blood flew out and fell onto the jade archive. A blood-red light bloomed and the jade archive was reborn. A fierce demonic face appeared on its surface, filled with endless majesty. Yuchi flicked her hand and the jade archive flew into the cave. As if it had fallen into a pool of water, it stirred up layers upon layers of waves. Then, the thick and unresolvable pitch-black night gradually turned into a whirlpool, spiraling to an unknown place. Roar, roar, as if sensing that a channel had opened, a deep demonic howl spread out from the vortex. The black face rose up from the vortex, its voice thick and cold. "Who dares disturb the land of sealed demons?" Yuchi grasped the guardian token and respectfully bowed. "Demon token, I come to interrogate Blood Demon." Without needing to be reminded, Chin-yu also took out the guardian token. The face paused for a moment, as if hesitating. But in the end, it said, "You may enter." Whoosh, the face dispersed and the vortex completely opened. Billowing demonic energy erupted. Yuchi took a deep breath, excitement on her face. She grabbed Chin-yu and rushed in. In the skies above the land of exiles, the moment that the land of sealed demons opened, night fell. Countless stars fell from the darkness. Vast starlight condensed. But before it could arrive, the aura that had caused all of this suddenly vanished from sight. The darkness dispersed with it. But this matter had already shocked the Northern Dynasty and Southern Empire. Countless demonic cultivators were excited and the righteous path powerhouses were worried. Several days later, all sorts of monsters and demons gathered in the land of exiles. But, no matter how much they dug, they couldn't find a single trace. The crack in the earth vanished without a trace. Even that cold aura was restrained beneath the sunlight. Hashtag seeking monthly votes. Seeking monthly votes. Seeking monthly votes. Chapter 54. Everything in front of him was pitch black, and he felt as if his body was being torn apart. Even with his demon body cultivation, he only felt a bit of discomfort. Yuchi's body tensed. She gripped Chin-yu's hand tightly and her breathing became much heavier. Chin-yu hesitated for a moment. Then, he reached out and held her in his arms. Yuchi's body stiffened. After a moment of hesitation, she gradually softened. This process took far longer than he imagined. Just as he was wondering whether or not he would be trapped in the darkness forever, the tearing strength around him suddenly vanished. He loosened his hand and took a step back. Yuchi stood up straight and looked around, a faint pink tint to her ears. Chin-yu broke the silence. "Where are we going?" Their current location was a huge stone cavern. The walls of the cavern were filled with caves, and no one knew where they led. Yuchi seemed to heave a sigh of relief. She took out the compass and carefully examined it. After a moment, she put it away. "Follow me." She paused and reminded again, "Make sure to bring the guard token." He hurriedly led the way. Chin-yu smiled and followed behind. After entering the cave, the lights suddenly dimmed. Even though the space wasn't narrow, it still made people feel breathless. It was cold and deathly silent. Besides the black stones, there was nothing else in sight. But as he watched Yuchi cautiously move forwards, he was secretly on guard, not daring to be careless in the slightest. Without warning, along with a mournful howl, a large stone suddenly protruded from the left. The black seal outlined a thin figure that rushed out, his arm grabbing at Yuchi. Her body tilted, but she quickly stood up. Her pretty face was cold as she looked at the stone without any fear. However, her slightly pale face and the beads of sweat on the tip of her nose exposed her true inner state. To tell the truth, Chin-yu was also shocked. It wasn't easy for her to adjust in such a short period of time. Sure enough, her coquettishness and gentleness were all fake. Her heart was stubborn and valiant. Even if she was afraid, she still had to hold on. After walking for a while, Chin-yu suddenly said, "Let's rest for a bit." Yuchi paused, not looking back. "You really are troublesome." She carefully examined her surroundings. After determining that there were no problems, she turned and sat down. Chin-yu tactfully distanced himself and closed his eyes in meditation. Yuchi bit her lips. She reached out and rubbed her ankle. As her eyes swept over Chin-yu, there was a trace of softness in them. Of course, she would never allow Chin-yu to see this. A moment later, Yuchi stood up. "Let's go." Chin-yu opened his eyes and smiled. The two of them continued deeper, the cave expanding outwards. When a skeleton that had been withered for countless years appeared on the ground, Yuchi's complexion changed. After thinking for a long time, she turned and said, "Be careful." Chin-yu slowly nodded. Not long ago, they found a broken seal. There was a large hole in the stone wall after the seal was broken. Yuchi stepped forward and carefully examined him. After a long time, she let out a breath. The seal loosened, allowing him to escape. But the seal's strength still severely wounded him. He couldn't withstand it and died. Chin-yu looked around. There wasn't anything strange about the dark cave entrance, but since Yuchi said this, she must have something to rely on. When they reached the fork, the cave split into 3. Yuchi took out the compass, but after fiddling with it for a long time, she seemed to have encountered a problem. "Try sensing your own blood. You should be able to do it." Chin-yu closed his eyes and emptied his mind. After several breaths of time, he opened his eyes and pointed. "Left." Yuchi looked down at the compass, a worried frown on her face. "What's wrong?" Yuchi gently sighed. "It looks like it won't be possible to easily obtain something. Of the 3 paths, the left one is the most dangerous." Chin-yu frowned. "How dangerous is it?" "Very dangerous." "Should we go?" Yuchi's eyes brightened. "Go. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come here in vain." She took a deep breath. "If you can't withstand it, just pour it into the guardian token. I forgot, you aren't a demonic cultivator. Stay closer to me." Chin-yu simply walked over. He seemed to be a bit too close. A delicate fragrance constantly drilled into his nose. When he looked down, he could see a young girl's fair neck, as well as the sparse hairs on it. Yuchi glared at him, indicating that there was no need to get so close. Chin-yu pretended not to see her. This was the land of sealed demons. Although it had been peaceful the entire time, who knew when problems would occur? Moreover, if he knew that what came next would be dangerous, he would be an idiot if he didn't stick close to her. Yuchi clenched her teeth in anger. But as she felt the aura coming from behind her, she couldn't help but admit that she felt much more at ease. Whatever, there was more important business to attend to. "I will endure this." After entering the cave on the left, the two of them had dignified expressions. It wasn't just because it was so dark that Yuchi had to take out the illumination pearl to illuminate the area, but more importantly because of the faint demonic energy that filled the air. The land of sealed demons was the place where demons were sealed, so by all reasoning it was normal for demonic energy to leak out. But as the two of them walked down here, even when the sealed demonic cultivator had suddenly collided with them, there hadn't been the slightest bit of demonic energy leaking out. In addition, Yuchi judged this path to be the most dangerous according to the compass. The two of them slowed down a great deal. Neither of them had any thoughts of speaking. Only the sound of light footsteps echoed through the cave. Suddenly, Yuchi stiffened. Chin-yu didn't know what was happening, but his body instinctively prepared itself. Bang, bang, the faint demonic energy in the air began to seethe like a raging sea, rising at an astonishing speed. One could clearly see traces of demonic energy seeping out from the stone walls in front and behind them. Shrill cries echoed in their ears. These weren't true sounds, but countless chaotic demonic thoughts fused together, trying to invade their minds and control them. With a loud shout, the guardian token in Yuchi's hand erupted with a faint black light that covered her and Chin-yu. The invasion of demonic thoughts was immediately isolated. Hurry and run. She grabbed Chin-yu and flew forwards. As if discovering that demonic thoughts were useless, demonic energy began to condense. Twisted demonic phantoms appeared in the cave, screaming as they hurtled towards the two. Yuchi's eyes flashed. Don't bother with them, they are just illusions. As she thought, the demonic phantoms passed through their bodies and scattered. Don't go. Stay here and accompany us. You can't escape. Low and deep, sharp, pleading, pitiful voices sounded out in the cave. There were men and women, young and old. Then, on the stone walls on both sides, seals began to break apart. The fierce figures of demonic cultivators began to appear. They crazily attacked, wanting to catch the two people in front of them. Yuchi quickly dodged. She seemed to have cultivated some sort of exquisite movement technique. Even though the demonic cultivators on both sides crazily attacked her, they weren't able to touch her at all. She warned, "Don't resist, let me bring you away. Otherwise, if you touch the seal, both of us will be sucked in." Chin-yu nodded. But at this time, his pupils shrank. He stepped forwards and grabbed onto Yuchi. The two of them came to a sudden stop. Caught off guard, they were nearly caught by the demonic cultivators attacking the seals. Yuchi turned around and was about to shout at them when she saw Chin-yu punch out. With a loud bang, the demonic phantoms that flew towards them collapsed with miserable screams. A black short sword fell to the ground. Yuchi paled. If it weren't for Chin-yu, she would have taken it as an illusion and crashed into it. The consequences could be imagined. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say something, but she was interrupted by Chin-yu. Let's hurry and leave. Of course, he had already picked up the black short sword that fell to the ground. Perhaps because they discovered that they couldn't do anything to this man and woman, the sealed demonic cultivators all fell silent. Soon, the two of them rushed out of the cave and arrived in another large underground space. Yuchi loosened her hand and gathered her hair. This is a demonic treasure. The quality should be very good. After being soaked in pure demonic energy for so long, it should have developed its own spiritual sense. Chin-yu's eyes brightened. Whether it was a magic tool or a demonic treasure, there was a chance that it would develop its own spiritual sense. This was called a spirit treasure. Even nascent soul cultivators might not be able to obtain a spirit treasure. From this, it could be seen just how precious they were. Don't think too much about it. This short sword has at most awakened at the initial stage. It has the shadow of a spirit treasure, but it is still far from truly transforming into a spirit treasure. Chin-yu smiled. He put away the short sword. In any case, I picked it up. As for what happens in the future, that will depend on its good fortune." His words were frank, open, and carefree. Yuchi's eyes flashed. She turned around and said, "Let's rest." Yu nodded. "You rest. I will stand guard." Just now, it was Yuchi who attacked, so he was very free. Yuchi didn't stand on ceremony. She sat down and took out a pill, swallowing it down. The pill was black with a faint purple hue. There was a faint fragrance in the air. It was completely different from any pill that Yu knew of. This Yuchi, her identity was very mysterious. After a moment, Yuchi opened her eyes. 2 traces of purple appeared in the depths of her eyes. They flashed for a moment, but there was an indescribable majesty to them. "It's enough." Yu looked back at the cave. "Miss Yuchi, this land of sealed demons should have been sealed off for a long time, so why haven't the demonic cultivators suppressed or died?" Yuchi shook her head. "Most of them have already died. It's just that their resentment hasn't scattered due to the strength of the seal." She didn't seem to want to speak further. "Sense it. Which direction should we go?" The underground space was extremely large. They couldn't see the end with a single glance. It was pitch black and visibility was extremely low. Yu closed his eyes. After several breaths of time, he opened them. His expression was dignified. "It seems we've arrived." He lifted a hand and pointed forwards. Yuchi revealed a happy expression. Following the uneven ground, the 2 of them soon saw a jade slip in the darkness that emitted a faint blood-red light. It was suspended outside a large protruding stone. The 2 of them didn't rashly move forwards. They carefully examined their surroundings. After discovering nothing strange, Yuchi could no longer suppress the excitement in her eyes. Yu turned and drew back several dozen feet. Yuchi's lips curved up in a smile. This fellow was quite tactful. She quickly walked over to the large stone and waved her hand. The jade slip flew into her hand. She seemed to be examining something. Then, she quickly put away the jade slip, her smile even brighter. "That's right, it was here." She took out a storage bag. Demonic energy flashed and a jade bottle appeared. It was translucent and one could clearly see a thick crimson liquid inside. Opening it, a rich smell of blood filled the space. A red fog of blood rose up from the bottle, fusing into the stone as if it were attracted by something. Soon, all of the crimson liquid evaporated and the entire stone was covered in the blood fog. The blood fog gradually thinned out and was absorbed by the stone. It turned the same blood-red color and began to wriggle like a living creature. Lines appeared on its surface, twisting and weaving together to form a strange circular seal. Yu frowned. Yu frowned. This thing looked like some sort of clan emblem. Yuchi had a dignified expression. Her demonic energy suddenly boiled up. Steam rose up, soaking her black dress and causing it to stick to her body. Even at this critical moment, Yu couldn't help but linger a little. This back, this waist, this perky figure, there was no one else like this. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.